Bimanyi.
Yes. We know Bangoli.
Mtegera bulungi. Tumaze emyaka esatu.
Let's just talk about the whole experience. And then when he says break, you can say, okay, we watch, like, just we're gonna play for you a video from yesterday's event. Huh? IMC or MCI? Okalab. You know young. Maybe adjusted and just sort of katambara. Chikirala jamu. Katambara. Yeah, nyimbe ziliko.
Katambara.
Yange kujora umira ko.
Nakuzi no nyereza dala.
Buzibu. Kaguni nakakuwadde wakala.
Akakwatsa.
Woke taga.
Abiri mu
Kati
bizizo.
wetukomawo nga twogera ku ki? Like structure of the virtual conference. Then you can.
So we have 1 minute to go.
Tujabyogera ko mu break ya video.
Alise.
Year one of the Media Challenge Expo 2020, themed on keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainty. And this is powerful for us because we really want to get journalists.
Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media. Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since
Hello, good morning from here, Kansanga in Uganda. I hope you're having a good time there, and I hope you're feeling as warm as we're feeling here, because it's the Media Challenge Expo 2020, and it's a virtual one. Yeah, yesterday was day one, and it was an amazing one. A lot of learning, a lot of networking. It was really a day you can never forget for anyone who attended the Media Challenge Expo 2020. Now, we come back today, day 2, and believe me, it will be bigger and better. It will be more entertaining. It will be more of learning, and a lot is lined up. My name is Dan Ayebale, and I'm your day's host. Now, guess what? Today, I start the day with someone who is, how can I describe him? Big as journalism itself, but he hates saying it. He hates calling him that. And he hates calling him that. I mean, the big guy here with me is the CEO Media Challenge Initiative. And allow me to introduce him. He is with me here, and I hope you're fine, Mr. Abbas.
I am very fine, and thank you for that big introduction.
Yeah, you're big as that, because, man, Uganda needs you. Uganda journalism needs you.
I'm humbled for sure.
And allow me to always say those big words when I'm introducing you, because you're worth it.
Well,
anyway,
now I will take in the moment.
Take it in, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Media Challenge Expo UG, and please keep online, keep sharing all the videos. I mean, keep watching. The hashtag for our social media is Media Expo UG. On Twitter, we are IM Challenge UG. On Facebook, we are Media Challenge Initiative. Allow me officially welcome you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Day 2, and it's moving smooth. How are you feeling?
I feel good. Like it's been really hard to go through this year for not just ourselves as an organization or journalism as an industry, but it's been really hard for the entire world. So to be here in this studio space with you, we can only be grateful.
Yeah, we can only be grateful. Yesterday was a good one. We started off with solutions journalism, talking solutions journalism, and I know it is something that is dear to your heart when someone talks about solutions journalism. So we had Julia talk to us about solutions journalism, and if I can remember the key points, maybe about what she shared, was about how you have to first, of course, identify a problem in solutions journalism. So where do you get this passion for solutions journalism? I know people in Uganda are doing journalism, but everyone is focusing on problems, war, conflict, name it. So where do you get this passion to say, I want to be part of the solutions journalism revolution?
Yeah, thank you, and that's a very good question. So, for me, it comes from this idea that journalism can make the world a better place, and that's the beginning, really. Once you have that in mind, you begin to ask yourself, what kind of journalism should we do to make sure we achieve that? And there is a struggle and a debate there. Do we focus on our traditional watchdog role of reporting about problems? If the dog bites man, it's not news. If man bites a dog, that's news. Should we focus on scandals, sex, bloodshed, war? And I'm not saying those shouldn't get, attention, because we have to expose those evils. But that's not the full reflection of what the world is. Where you have a problem in this world, you also have 10,000, responses or solutions that are being done to stop that issue. And the world is basically whispering about the solutions, and we are shouting about the problem. So where that takes us is we are creating a world where we are only seeing problems, and that's not good for anything. It doesn't work in a family setting where you're raising a child. It doesn't work in parenting where you're only pointing out problems. You always have to find, what's working. And that's where solutions journalism comes in. For us to start thinking about what responses do we have in our communities to make sure that we are responding very well? What responses do we have in our communities to make sure that we are dealing with problems? How are they working? What are the limitations? How can other people replicate those responses in their communities if they're facing those very problems or challenges? And I think journalism, or a journalist, you can only say sometimes you have really done great work if your work has impacted the world. So you have to define your impact.
All right. Yesterday was about so many other things. Not many, but a couple of other things. Maybe we shall go into detail about them later. But for now, let's talk about the Expo going virtual. Yeah. We've known the Expo being in these venues. I mean, we're meeting physically, but of course we all know that the coronavirus is here and we can't meet physically anymore. One would think you would have maybe thought about cancelling it, but you said, no, here we are, we have to do something. So why not cancel it, if I could ask it directly?
It definitely did cross our minds, but we are not, MCI, we are not a team of, quit. It's been a long journey for us to say we couldn't organize this. So anyways, the whole world is going virtual, as you've said. And we figured, whenever COVID leaves, there's going to be a discussion on how do we use the different platforms. So, and we started to ask ourselves, what programs do we have that will never be the same again? Are we going to still continue going to the universities? Are we going to continue meeting people in the Expo the way we used to? Maybe, but maybe not. But it's very clear that the world might never meet again the same way. Probably when the world has a vaccine, but the way things look, some of us might always have a mask on when we're in these mass audiences. So we figured also for the safety of people who attend the Expo, journalism students, the media practitioners, you don't want to put anyone at risk. And but we also saw the opportunity of doing something different. So it's a new challenge for us to develop this concept of going virtual, so that we can tap not only into the Ugandan resources, but the global resources. So as you can tell, we have panelists from all over the world, which initially we wouldn't achieve if we're because of resources. And I think it's the way to go. So you will realize that MCI as an organization, we've really pivoted most of our work to online platforms now. We are working on an app that will help us to to roll out our trainings. So if you're a young journalist, maybe you really have to be excited about that platform, because you'll be able to learn and engage with mentors online. So the mentorship program also will pivot, and our hope is that that platform is appreciated and bought into by the different beneficiaries, be it mentors, mentees, students, lecturers, and newsrooms, to recruit young people from that space. So it's coming soon, and we'll also, for most of the programs that we'll be doing now, the Expo will totally be different. It's moving forward, it will always be hybrid, a merger of both physical and with physical definitely following SOPs, social distancing, and making sure people are safe in that space. So
I have attended the Expo.
long answer. Eh,
No, don't worry. You have the time. You're the CEO.
No,
All right. So we talk about the Expo. I've attended a couple of them, and
yeah,
there is that.
I know you.
Thank you.
3 years,
I'm humbled, you know me.
4 years down the road.
So I wonder, there is that. That is something that happens at the Expo, and kind of the networking that happens. Students meeting each other, and students meeting media practitioners, and media, anyway, people who hire media managers. So there's that chance, or maybe that opportunity that is always there. So now that we've gone virtual, how do we bridge that?
So thanks for highlighting that. I think one of the biggest things we're really missing out is the crowd. The Expo crowd is just amazing. It's the biggest asset of the Expo. I mean, unfortunately, we cannot have it, but we have thought through the whole experience. So right now, as I speak, there are a couple of students who signed up for what we call the MCI Zoom pitch. So you sign up and you get to attend a Zoom session with a media manager. The difference here, though, is that though it's virtual, it's very personal, because you don't have any distraction to share your story with a media manager. The difference here also is that that media manager probably is not distracted by a lot of the other students who want to talk to them. So you're able to have a one-on-one. So the people who have signed up for those Zoom pitch sessions, I think it's going to be amazing for them to really talk, share their story one-on-one, get feedback, probably get an internship, or moving forward, see how they can work in that same space. But also remember, you can hardly forget that one person you talked to one-on-one on Zoom. But you could easily forget someone you randomly met at an event at the Expo. I'm not trying to downplay the experience at the Expo. Simply sharing what we've created as a substitute to that experience. So we also used to have the race against time newsroom experience.
Exactly, I was coming to that one.
Yeah, that has been hard really to replace, because it's just organic. It's something that you can't replace. Yeah. So what we did, though, before going into this Expo, we worked with journalism students. One, we provided our online platform where they can access our online courses. So they attended mobile journalism, youth radio, and we had 100 students plus from all over the country who were signing in and attending. We asked them to do stories. And those stories then will be submitted to us. And then judges will go through those stories. Then they will receive their awards.
That's how, exactly. I was coming. That's how we come to the award winners of this year. That's how you will choose the award winners of this year?
So we have, this was never going to be the time when I would share about it. So this year, unfortunately, we will not have the Media Challenge Awards night.
That's so sad.
But we will have the Media Challenge Awards night in 2020 at the around beginning of the year, either January or Feb. And I can also use this time to talk about that, because we were supposed to share it before. So the awards for this year, we couldn't achieve them because because of the time and because we spent a lot of time in the lockdown, so we couldn't cover up for. And it was hard for us to get to partners also to discuss awards when we have people we needed to take care of each other. So we had to move budgets a bit. But we also had to really see what can work for the MCI team. We have a lot of work right now. So it would have been very insincere and insensitive of us to drown our team into all this work. So, however, the awards night will happen in a much better way. No, maybe like a hybrid. Awards are awards. They need that physical red carpet feeling, you know. So we will achieve them with as much social distancing as possible, but also with a hybrid concept. So we will have online and offline. And they will focus on excellent reporting on COVID-19. So this year, or the awards for the reporters will really be benefiting because we'll focus on excellent reporting on COVID-19 across board, from investigative to explanatory reporting, to solutions journalism. So if you're a solutions journalist out there, you should look out for the awards. We're about to launch the website, and then you can pitch your story.
So I can win an award?
Yeah, sure. I mean, why not?
Oh, I thought maybe my time is up with the awards. I can't come back and win an award right now. So it's up. How many? I mean, who is it open to? That could be clear maybe if you say it.
So there are two categories. There is a students category, and then there is also a mainstream journalist category. So reporters mainly from across radio, TV, online, community, everywhere.
Thank you very much, Abbas. I'm still having him here. If you really want to ask him a question, actually you can, and I will shoot more questions when we come back.
Sure.
For now, let's take a simple break.
Of the Media Challenge Expo 2020, themed on keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainty. And this is powerful for us because we really want to get journalists to care about the things that really matter to them. In most cases, journalists, we only report about issues of other people. And the Expo, traditionally we've always talked about refugees, climate change, women in media. This time around, we decided to go home and talk about what's affecting us. So what you see here is basically the Media Challenge TV studio, where we get to produce this expo virtually. It's hard. It's a whole routine. We have cameras here, as you can see. I'm not a camera person, but you have to do it. What has happened today is we had a session on solutions journalism, and I think that's really powerful for the industry to begin looking at what's working in our communities. How can we best report about those things that are working, rather than just continuously reporting about you know, things that are not working, the riots, we should report about them, but we should also look at how we can use solutions journalism to change our communities.
Well, day one of the Expo was something I did not see coming, but initially it has been quite a different experience, because we've been used to having these physical expos where we are one-on-one and we feel the touch, but with the come of the pandemic, and we see that we can communicate or send message through virtual means.
And for young journalists or maybe other journalists to be able to attend an expo, even when it's not physical or even when they're at home, wherever they are, and learn and actually meet new people is something I'm excited about. And I hope the entire expo will be the same way.
And people will live to say, and when a crisis of COVID-19 hit the world, the media challenge was up to the task, and we had the media expo. It's great, as it has always been.
So for the next couple of days until the end of this week, we'll be focusing on other issues like fact-checking, countering disinformation, media viability, and finding some of the answers to the basic challenges that are facing the media industry in Uganda. All that will be produced here in the Media Challenge studios.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
The world is going through an incredible period of change. The rise of COVID-19 is turning everything we knew upside down. So how do we cope?
Information can save lives, but how much of it is true? Who and what do we trust? Lies and falsities are swirling. The internet teems and overwhelmed with falsities.
Is COVID-19 real? How do we protect ourselves? What happens to all the money? Getting the answer wrong could be a matter of life and death. But we have the story.
We dig deep to uncover the truth from the lies, the news from the rumors. We provide you with the information that you need to stay safe.
Every week, we bring you the facts. We are the fast fact-checking news show in Uganda, powered by youth for youth. We bring you the bank.
Welcome. Let me tell you why I am here. I am here to share with you something. As Tupac Shakur once said, don't believe everything that you hear or see. Real eyes realize real lies. My name is Andrew Onen, and this is The Debunk. As the name sounds, fact checks news, myths, and all lies which are coming with COVID-19 in Uganda and Africa. The infodemic, as recently pronounced by the World Health Organization, is coming with overwhelming information, hence creating panic. While the government and health workers are taking on the battle against the pandemic of COVID-19, on this show, a group of fact checkers take on the infodemic crisis. In a layman's language, we'll tell you what is fake, what is misleading, and what is fact. Let's take a look at our first story. We start off with a claim about a possible relief mixture for COVID-19 disease that was published by Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye Chifefe on his Facebook page on 16th August 2020. More insight on this story from our debunker and fact-checker Judith Nakawesi.
Debunk.
Dr. Kiza Besigye's post reads, "Please don't be misled. Prepare for possible COVID-19 infection. If you're prepared, you'll overcome it. Make your immunity booster. We need to quickly boost our body immunity to prepare for a possible fight with COVID-19. Proceed to prepare an effective immunity booster as follows. Blend the following in a blender for 5 minutes. 1 liter of hot water, 10 to 15 pieces of garlic, 2 lemons, 1 big fleshy onion, 4 thumb-sized ginger, and 5 red pepper. Let it cool down and take 2 tablespoons every after 8 hours. Tablespoons of this concoction is what Dr. Kiza Besigye claims that when consumed every after 8 hours boosts one's immunity to fight COVID-19. In our investigation, I spoke to Dr. Francis Bugoba, a medical personnel at Mulago Referral Hospital, and this is what he said.
It is true to a certain extent, but it is not limited to fighting COVID. It is diverse. We have certain key elements in our immune systems that are built from certain small mineral salts or ingredients that are from within nature. But when somebody maybe not out the above that you mentioned, the ginger and all that, yes, lemon and all that, yes, it's not limited to COVID-19. It's just that the current situation is pushing us to fearing COVID-19 than other illnesses. These key ingredients that you mentioned above, yeah, are only going to help make elements available, but they are not going to be protective. For example, let me give you this example. If you go to the hospital and get vaccinated for measles, it boosts your immunity only for that specific antigen, which is measles. Yeah. But it does not protect you from maybe polio. Okay. These things that you've mentioned above will only contribute to the innate arm. Oh. The innate arm is the macrophages that are always available to eat microbes, the skin. They will only contribute to the innate arm. They will not contribute to the acquired or adaptive arm. You understand? That means they do not have a specific protective measure for COVID-19 in particular. Okay. The only recommended method of prevention of COVID-19 or any other virus is vaccination. Okay. And at the moment, we do not have a vaccine that is ready for COVID-19. So the best way to approach COVID-19 is to prevent it from getting to you altogether. Okay. Wash your hands, sanitize, things like that. Okay. Do not say, if I take the above, I will be safe. You will not be safe because you can still get COVID-19 when you're very healthy and it kills you. We've seen very people that have died of COVID-19 when they were actually healthy before getting it.
Let's take a look at the impact of this claim.
I mixed and developed serious ulcer, now which I'm struggling to treat.
Lemons have a very great deal of a certain acid which we call lactic acid. And in the stomach, the body needs an acidic medium to digest food. It has another acid called hydrochloric acid. So if you take lactic acid, it increases the acidity of the stomach and the acid does some harm, which we call damaging the walls of the intestines and damaging the walls of the stomach.
Okay.
So if you mix lemons with red pepper, those two things, if taken on an empty stomach, can aggravate ulcers in a patient with ulcers, or can lead to ulcers in a patient with a predisposition to getting ulcers.
In an interaction with friends, a miracle COVID relief mixture is mentioned. We set out to check where this information was published, doing an advanced Google search. We chose to focus on the post published by Colonel Dr. Kiza Besige for local content. First, we researched about how immunities respond to foreign bodies. Then, whether there is any medical relation of the mixture to COVID-19, considering there is no cure yet. And lastly, we involved an expert doctor to establish the truth. And that is how we established the verdict.
And the verdict is: the claim is false and unproven. Moving on a lighter side, did you know that it is claimed that in some places wearing yellow is prohibited? Let's welcome Florence Kabagenyi, our entertainer and fact checker.
The Bank.
I'm so happy to be here with this week's Fun Fact Entertainment segment. My name is Flora Show and this is the D-Bank. Woo! I can't wait to show you what I've got, and let's get the show started.
In most cultures, color yellow symbolizes sunshine. Yes, I'm talking about the yellow I'm wearing. It is also in our Uganda national flag and it symbolizes sunshine. No wonder when we were growing up as kids, we used to paint the sun color yellow. But the claims making rounds online that it is actually illegal to wear anything, as in anything yellow in Malaysia. I know you don't want to hear about anything yellow, but let me take you there. In 2016, the Malaysian government banned wearing yellow after a group of protesters stormed the streets of Kuala Lumpur, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Razak earlier in 2015. From then, anyone wearing yellow can be arrested under the assumption that they are anti-government. What is true about this claim is that wearing particular color yellow t-shirts like that one on your screen was banned. Not my dress.
Malaysia. Now me a proper Ugandan without propaganda, I will not be there because I love yellow too much. Yeah? I love even growing sunflower. You would miss money, eh?
While browsing through Facebook videos, I landed on a clip by Unknown Facts by Jen Mice published on 30th September about 12 normal things which are banned around the world. And in the comment section, not wearing yellow in Malaysia was not received well as a fact. To debunk this, I did a Google search and found this information on TripAdvisor. I also did a crowdsourcing technique from friends who have traveled to Malaysia who revealed that it is not fact that yellow clothes are prohibited in Malaysia.
And the verdict is:
this is a misleading claim. I repeat, this is a misleading claim.
And in our next story, Joel Senyonyi, a Ugandan politician aspiring for Nakawa West Member of Parliament seat, shared a picture on social media which he claimed was from a certain source. Rukia Nabanja debunked this.
The Bank.
I received a screenshot on my WhatsApp showing that it was taken from Joel Senyonyi's Facebook account, and this is how it looked like.
The post read, I was sent this picture of a patient in Barara Regional Referral Hospital on a bed without a mattress. Some government hospitals actually do not have beds and mothers give birth on the floor. In a new Uganda, we must prioritize healthcare. Leaders can't be getting treatment abroad on taxpayers' money while the taxpayers are ignored.
Was it actually his official Facebook account? I checked for this.
So we have established that this post was actually shared by Joel Senyonyi, considering that there is a verification blue tick on his Facebook account and there is a post that he refers to.
This particular post claims that this picture was taken in a hospital that is found in Barra district. But why did Mugisha Richard Bugari on Facebook respond with the same picture but also showing that it was taken from a different country? We did our own investigation, and what we found out is that this particular picture has been used on numerous online platforms and social medias.
On Twitter, @Rabbit the King on 25th February 2020 to represent Homa Bay Referral Hospital, Kenya. Instagram @Chini's blog on 5th March 2019 to represent Nigeria. Facebook @Matt Eagle and Zambian Watchdog on 7th March 2019 to represent Kabwe General Hospital, Zambia. Facebook @Joel Senyonyi on 31st October 2020 to represent Mbarara, Uganda. Nzururu TV blog on 29th September 2020 to represent Kasese. The finding is that the photo was first shared online on 5th March 2019 by Chini's Blog NG, an Instagram account that shares Nigerian content, and that the photo represented Sacred Heart Hospital, considering the similarities with other photos taken from the same place.
The research that we did, we actually found out that this picture of a particular man lying on a bed without a mattress was used out of context by Joel Senyonyi.
What's the impact of this claim?
What we are experiencing with this post, it's something that has been happening over time here and beyond. The politicians' use of the fake news discourse in order to advance their views into the public. Moments after receiving the screenshot of the photo in question, we sought to find particularly whether Joel Senyonyi published it. After establishing that he had posted about it on his Facebook page, we analyzed the content and language that meant that it represented Uganda's failed health system. We ran a reverse image search using tools like Forensically, Yandex and Google Lens by uploading the picture into the tools, which led us to different other resources that had published about the same photo. However, in another post dated 31st October 2020, Joel came out with an acknowledgement statement apologizing for what he had shared in his earlier post, which was spreading misinformation.
As we come to the end of the show, we'd like to advise you to do the following to contain unverified and fake news on social media. Think, reflect before you click and share. Double check with credible news platforms in your country and reach out to journalists around you so that you can ask them. And finally, do not share any content if you feel is suspicious. In our next edition, be sure to catch us as we share with you tools you can use to fact check and verify any suspicion. Thank you so much for watching. A special shout out to our fact-checking partner, Africa Check, and the whole production team. Once again, please Do not listen to rumors, but recommended guidelines from the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization to contain the spread of coronavirus disease. My name is Andrew Onen.
Every week, we bring you the facts. We are the fast fact-checking news show in Uganda, powered by Youth for Youth. We bring you the bank.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka the last one, aka the dreaded voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the Expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then.
Day one of the Media Challenge Expo 2020, themed on keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainty. And this is powerful for us because we really want to get about the things that really matter to them. In most cases, journalists, we only report about issues of other people. And the Expo, traditionally we've always talked about refugees, climate change, women in media. This time around we decided to go home and talk about what's affecting us. So what you see here is basically the Media Challenge TV studio, where we get to produce this expo virtually. It's hard. It's a whole routine. We have cameras here, as you can see me. I'm not a camera person, but you have to do it. What has happened today is we had a session on solutions journalism, and I think that's really powerful for the industry to begin looking at what's working in our communities. How can we best report about those things that are working, rather than just continuously reporting about things that are not working, the riots. We should report about them, but we should also look at how we can use solutions journalism to change our communities.
Well, day one of the expo was something I did not see coming, but initially it has been quite a different experience, because we've been used to having these physical expos where we are one-on-one and we feel the touch. But with the come of the pandemic, and we see that we can communicate or send message through virtual means.
And for young journalists or maybe other journalists to be able to attend an expo, even when it's not physical, or even when they're at home, wherever they are, and learn and actually meet new people, is something I'm excited about, and I hope the entire expo will be the same way.
And people will live to say, and when a crisis of COVID-19 hit the world, the Media Challenge was up to the task, and we had the Media Expo. It's great, as it has always been.
So for the next couple of days, until the end of this week, we'll be focusing on other issues like fact-checking, countering disinformation, media viability, and finding some of the answers to the basic challenges that are facing the media industry in Uganda. All that will be produced here in the Media Challenge studios.
The Bank.
The world is going through an incredible period of change. The rise of COVID-19 is turning everything we knew upside down. So how do we cope?
Information can save lives, but how much of it is true? Who and what do we trust? Lies and falsities are swirling. The internet teems and overwhelmed with falsities.
Is COVID-19 real? How do we protect ourselves? What happens to all the money? Getting the answer wrong could be a matter of life and death. But we have the story.
We dig deep to uncover the truth from the lies, the news from the rumors. We provide you with the information that you need to stay safe.
Every week, we bring you the facts. We are the fast fact-checking news show in Uganda, powered by Youth for Youth.
Hi, welcome to Uganda's fact-checking show. My name is Bella Twine, and I will be joined by my fellow fact-checkers later on. This is the only fact-checking show in Uganda, and as the name sounds, we fact-check news, lies, myths that are circulating with the global pandemic COVID-19 in Uganda and globally. Recently, the World Health Organization pronounced an infodemic, which is flowing with an overwhelming amount of information, and in turn, it creates panic. While health workers and governments are battling with the global pandemic COVID-19, on this show, fact checkers, as we like to call ourselves, will take on the infodemic crisis. We'll collect the information, trending topics, news, lies in our communities, internet, and on social media. What we'll do, we'll debunk, investigate, and fact check this information. In a layman's language, we will tell you what's fake, what is fact, what is the lie, and what is the truth. Let's take a look at our Fast Debunk.
The Bank.
Our Fast Debunk was on Oman's social media, but as rumors travel faster than the truth, this found its grounding in Ugandan WhatsApp chats and social media. Let our fact checker give us more.
Thank you, Bella. My name is Victoria Mary Kasozi, your residential fact checker. The World Health Organization recommends washing our hands with running water and soap as the best way of combating the spread of coronavirus. But we are not always just hanging around the sink when we need one. This is where a bottle of sanitizer in every hand comes in. So portable, so easy, and so effective. There has been a plethora of misinformation going around over the use of sanitizers since there is a massive spike in their sales due to COVID-19. An image of a man's hand filled with blisters has been going around all over social media, claiming that this incident happened in Mangalore, Karnataka, India, after this person used a sanitizer by the name of Farah. This triggered our concern as fact checkers, and we decided to do a fact check. Do you want to know what we found out? Then walk with us. Fast forward, we conducted a Google reverse image search, which led us to the different pages that shared the image in languages more than one, but not in English. We used the C translation command on Facebook to understand what the posts meant in these different languages. We then visited another Facebook page run by the national detergent brand, which same company happens to be the sole manufacturer of this specific sanitizer, as shown in the image above, to see what their response was on the above claims. Here is where we found out that on the 22nd of August, this company put up a statement on their Facebook page refuting these claims. This statement read that, "Dear valued consumers, we have been noticing a fake news about our Farah hand sanitizer on social media, and we would like to clarify this to all our valued consumers that Farah hand sanitizer has been in use for the last 12 years now and is the only sanitizer certified and approved by the Ministry of Health, Sultanate of Oman. It is also approved by SFDA, KSA, and ESMA, UAE. This fake news has been propagated by some unknown person with bad intention, and we have already initiated legal action against people who have posted and shared this fake news on their walls. As a reputed manufacturer, NDC assures that all its products are of the best quality and are 100% safe. Keep using NDC products." As we kept on digging deeper, we visited other fact-checking avenues to see whether this claim appeared in any of their investigated content. Here we landed on Digit Eye India, a fact-checking website. And according to the information in relation to this claim, a dermatologist that was contacted on this issue said that it's highly unlikely that a hand sanitizer could lead to such adverse effects. With all this information gathered, it's crystal clear that this claim is fake. Do not believe it. However, although this claim is false, we are bound to take caution on the type of sanitizer.
2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
Welcome once again to the Media Challenge Expo 2020. we are happy you are still watching, and we're glad that the expo is moving on smoothly. Early morning we had pitching sessions from some of the fellows to some of the media houses, like Basi had told you, and right now I'm back with Pindi Basi, and we're keeping on the conversation going. We're having you, right, and I hope you keep it here. So Abbas.
Yes.
The expo, and today we're talking fact checking.
I know.
Yeah, and
this is the best time to talk fact checking.
Yes, we're talking fact checking. Fellows, and me as a fellow who has been part of the fellowship of 2020, I've been glad to be part of the trainings, and we've been able to get equipped with those tools for fact checking videos, fact checking photos, images, and even text anyway. Yeah. So what could someone expect from the session that is coming on, the fact-checking session? Any person who has never heard of fact-checking or have heard the word fact-checking, but they're not sure about what it is about.
So, I mean, the reason why we organized this expo this year at Focus on Journalism is really to address the challenges the media industry is facing. One of those is definitely the misinformation, disinformation, fake news, what the WHO has called the infodemic. So especially now, I mean, this is not new, it has always been there, but especially now with COVID-19, it has become very, very clear and apparent that we're really struggling to deal with fake news. And that's where the work of journalists come in, to make sure that we are fact-checking information and we are providing accurate and factual information to the public to deal with the pandemic. Well, as everyone has been saying, we have to flatten the curve of COVID-19. There's also another campaign that is geared towards flattening the curve of the infodemic. And that's what we're going to discuss today.
A lot of
flattening the curve of misinformation and disinformation through fact-checking, journalism, and media literacy, because those three components have to move hand in hand for us to be able to deal with the challenge.
So there is a common question that many people ask. If you have fact-checking, you're like, okay, what do the investigative journalists do? Maybe our moderators, our panelists will tell us more about that. But for now, could you really tell our dear viewer out there what it could be between fact-checking and investigative journalism? What could be the difference? What's the line between?
I think the thin line between there is that with the investigative journalism, you're looking at exposing what other people don't want to be exposed. So it could be evil, it could be corruption, it could be murders, it could be scandals. It's just a lot of things that people don't want ever to be. But with fact-checking, you're dealing with countering lies and misinformation that, all over, either social media or on the mainstream media or even in just conversation. So, and you need to know why some people are intentionally spreading fake news for specific reasons. And the work of journalists therein is to make sure that that is countered so that we're not misleading the public. Because it's very important that we know, for the public, if they see anything, most cases, if they see anything on social media that comes from an account that probably looks, like the ones they get news from, they may not be able to substantiate, like, this is a wrong account or this is the true account. And that becomes very tricky for the public to, because it's just like some people are really good at it. So if you're looking at like deep fakes, that really you can't tell the difference between the real video and the fake video. That requires a fact checker. I mean, you can be a fact checker also as well as an investigative
investigative
journalist.
journalist.
But you can also be, you can do both. So there is nothing like you can only be, you can choose to be a fact checker.
So I understand Media Challenge Fellows of 2020 have really put together videos about fact checking.
Yes.
I've watched a couple
Yourself.
of them. I've watched a couple of them and they've been amazing, I can say.
Yeah.
What was the process in organizing these kind of shows? Because it is a concept that is maybe exciting actually, but I would want to know what's the process behind organizing such shows? From you as Media Challenge.
Yeah, thank you. So the first thing, I also have to say that we're very grateful to UNESCO East Africa because they supported us with a small grant to train our young journalists. So if it wasn't for them, maybe we would never have had that training. Then we contacted Africa Check, which is one of the biggest, fact-checking organizations in the world. Their training unit, TriCheck, are the ones that conducted the training for the fellows. So after the trainings, the fellows are required to do, were required to develop, their own shows to really practice what they had learned. So if you're out there and you watch our debunk shows done by the fellows, you might find a few things in there. They're really amazing shows, but you might find a few things that you say, but is that, you might have feedback to give them, if I could put it that way. But you should know that this is work done by young journalists who are practicing and learning to also become fact checkers, and that's, I think, so the process is put these young guys in groups and let them work in a race against time to fact check information. For us, it was a longer period because people are in different places because of COVID-19 lockdowns, so it took some time to produce them. But one of the things we really want to achieve is in the next couple of months to make it an official program of the organization.
Yeah, you talk about making it an official program, and I was going there exactly. So the fellows produce these shows. Where does it go from here? Does it end there? Any plans from Media Challenge Initiative?
That's a tricky question, but it's one that I would definitely want to attempt. So for now, we have been providing a platform on our social media pages to share. What we want to be able to do is to form a fact-checking team, young people who are committed to do that, and invest in it so that we can partner with any TV channels to run that content, because we know that most of the fact-checking platforms are text-based and are online, which doesn't reach a big number of Ugandans who should really benefit from fact-checking. We also want to be able to translate the shows into local languages, so that if I am in Soroti or in Fort Portal or in Gulu or Kabale, I'm able, I get fact-checked information. Yeah.
Okay. Away from that, let's maybe go through the entire expo, maybe briefly to get to know what the days will be like. Today is day 2.
Day 2.
Yeah, and tomorrow will be day 3.
Yes.
And we shall be having, I can see here from the program, we shall be having media viability and new revenue business models to keep journalism alive. Just in a minute, maybe you can brief us on that.
So, I mean, besides fact-checking, one of the difficult challenges, if I could say that, is financial sustainability of the media and of journalism. And that comes from the fact that even before COVID-19, the media industry was asking itself questions. Are the traditional advertisement revenue streams working with the emergence of global, internet giants like Google and all these guys, Facebook? And it's been very clear that the industry is struggling, and that's why you have issues of quality of content, because you don't have resources to invest in good content. You don't have finances to hire the best talent and retain them. And that comes from the business model of media and journalism. Who are we depending on? Can we be independent as a media while we still depend on advertisers and on governments and NGOs? What is the future of business for journalism? So that particular session will bring together a good panel of experts on media viability to really share.
George Chigozi, Next Media Services,
reach. And they'll be able to share some of their key lessons and insights on how to deal with, the different media viability in general. And our hope is that we can have a very good conversation on finding some sustainable solutions to the challenges of media viability.
Okay, on to day 4.
Yes.
That will be Thursday. But the panel discussion will be about beyond the headlines, unreported, underreported, and ignored issues and stories. A brief about that, simple one.
Yes, that is a session about undocumented stories. Stories of environment, climate change, minorities, stories across that, rural stories that never get to be told to the world, because we are focusing on what's eventual right now or what's political right now. So you remember, even with COVID-19, the whole media space just switched to covering COVID stories. That in a way meant that a lot of stories about other issues that actually affect people just never got to be covered. So we want to see, we're getting again a global group of people to talk to us about how do we effectively cover undocumented stories. Do we do niche journalism? Do we partner with mainstream media to make sure that some of that content is running? Like, really, how do we make sure that rural stories are accessible for everyone? How do we make sure that stories of minorities, people who are disabled, are getting told? So that is one of the panels that I'm super excited about.
I think this connects back to maybe sustaining media. Because if you have to tell those untold stories or underreported stories, that means there's a lot you have to put in to go down there or maybe find those stories. So do you think there's a connection there about underreporting stories and then maybe sustaining media?
There is definitely a deep connection, because for you to do certain stories like investigative journalism, you need good resources, a lot of money, and people who tell you like there are stories that are done, one story, and it takes around 100 million Uganda shillings. So the question is, do you have a Ugandan company that can actually invest?
Have the muscle
to invest 100 million in producing one story? That's debatable. If you have stories in hard-to-reach areas, like stories of Batwa in mountainous areas in the forests, who goes there? I don't know. So that becomes more an issue of resources, because, and that's where we need to find solutions. If you cannot be there, can citizen journalists work with you to citizens who are in those communities? Can you work with community reporter models? Can you work with local radio, community radio stations to, there are creative solutions that you can definitely use. But
yeah, it's still the Media Challenge Expo 2020, and I thank you for keeping it here. Please keep doing the social media. The hashtag is Media Expo UG, and you can find us at IamChallengeUG on Twitter and Media Challenge Initiative on Facebook. Yes, Abbas, we go to day 5.
Yes.
Day 5, we shall have a panel discussion about keeping journalism alive, journalists' safety and abuse of media freedoms, during a time of COVID-19 and elections.
Yeah.
You have a comment on that one?
Yes, we've seen that one of the times when journalists are abused most is one, during pandemics, and two, during elections. We have seen this, journalists being pepper sprayed on broad daylight TV. And that's a concern for any democracy, for sure. So you need to be able to discuss and find solutions for the safety and security of our journalists who are, going at the front lines of these. The other thing, of course, around the pandemic is, well, the whole world was in a lockdown. Journalists were out there, doing all these stories. But how many of those are protected? How many media houses are sending, journalists to the field, but with, protecting? What are the other issues of safety around covering the pandemic? Because it's very important to think about journalists who are going above and beyond to report about these issues in those communities. And safety is very, very important. Safety and security is very important. Journalists who are doing investigative stories are, liable to a lot of, abuse, a lot of, threats. So it's definitely a session that we must have, especially if we are to keep journalism alive. We must keep journalists alive, if I could say that.
Yeah, the topic of maybe press freedom has been there since maybe time immemorial.
Yes.
And you would think even right now that it's still here. I wonder sometimes, when will we ever achieve that, the real total freedom, press freedom? When will we ever?
It's really hard because the work of journalism is not the work that is really appreciated by many people, especially by the powers or the people who don't want certain information to be, exposed. So it's really that. You don't expect that. But again, even if we are doing a work that is risky, it doesn't mean that we should be beaten and abused and jailed. So there has to be, because we know the work that we do is very important to any democracy. So if you're in governance, you need to understand, how do we make sure that there is an equal space for all the stakeholders to operate, including journalists. So, and the discussion will never end, because every year you will hear reports of journalists killed, journalists jailed, journalists abused, families threatened, and even press freedom is not about even safety of journalists. Just like you don't have there are other ways to abuse press freedom rather than attacking journalists.
So then about safety, maybe, as well, it's closed press freedom, of course, same thing anyway. I would want to ask, there's a topic, maybe a debate actually, of media houses maybe sending out reporters, for example, and all they care about is the story. They don't play a part in your safety, but they just want you to go out there and then come back, bring the story. That's what matters. Is there any way maybe we can talk about that and then see what could be the recommendations? Maybe what could media houses do, apart from maybe waiting on what is out there, to help their own reporters to go out there and remain safe?
I think it's a requirement that you take care of your workers.
But
basically,
they could say maybe safety is safety. If it is safety,
yes,
it is you first. But maybe at one point you feel maybe they have thrown me in a den of lions.
Yes, and I think, we have, for us who have gone through journalism school, some of the interactions you've had, people will tell you no story is bigger than your life. So for me, if it's that threat, then you need to know, you need to really do assess and see. But back to your, what can media houses do to make sure that their journalists are safe and protected? I think there has to be intentionality, like an inner culture in any media house to like put safety first. And that culture has to come from the top. For the duty to care has to be among us, you know, in our leaders in the media industry, to say, my journalists will not go out there to cover riots without protective gear. You know, my journalists will have insurance just in case they have gotten, you know, in an accident or any trouble while in the line of duty. So there has to be that intentionality within any media house. The problem again is around the resources. I'm sure, like I'm thinking that all of the media houses would love to do that. Maybe because of the business going down, they are not able to provide some of. But even then, I would rather you really, really critically think about how to, at all fronts, emotionally, you know, Raymond Mujuni just had a huge thread on social media, on Twitter.
I saw it.
About, you know, the whole impact of covering violence on your mental health in long term. And those are things that I don't think we are thinking about in the media landscape. And I think even associations like, you know, UJA should think about like mental health of journalists. How do they protect, you know, provide resources, mental health, emotional support, a lot. Like it's just a whole broad thing that you need to think about internally. HR departments in all the media houses should critically think about those issues.
Ideally, if you talk about mental health, people think maybe out there, the society believes that maybe a journalist should have a thick skin, so if you're out there, but maybe to echo this, as a journalist out there, you need to mind much about your mental health, because at one point in time, your brain is your engine, so you have to take care of it and make sure that what really affects you is taken care of. Or maybe you as a person, you find some maybe therapy and some kind of help if you feel you're not feeling fine.
Yeah.
Am I right? So there's 6 now.
Right.
Keeping investigative journalism alive in the times of uncertainty and COVID-19.
Yeah.
Last night I watched Canary Mugume's investigative piece about Makerere University.
Yes.
And you watched it?
I did.
How was it? What's your is it review?
I think it was an amazing piece done, you know, an explainer piece. I think he did a great job to, you know, raise those critical questions around where's the report, you know, and such events when they happen, the proactiveness of players in the sector is very important. So we look at that and say, okay. And I think journalists should be able to, so that building might look like, you know, it's just a building that just burnt and it's okay, we can put up another one. But we have lost like a whole lot of history for this country in there, in that just one, those walls that you see out there. And journalists have to be critical around those questions. And you might be like, but really, is it important? Yes, it's important, not just to hold the powers accountable, how did this happen, but even to just for us to begin reflecting on our, you know, history and say those sites are critical in 100 years or 200 years from now, whoever will be there. And it's stories like these that will be referred to.
Yeah. So Saturday we shall talk investigative journalism, and we talk about it being maybe also in times of uncertainty. Right now, it also being under threat.
Yeah.
Having a pandemic, and maybe if we could go back to the pandemic, COVID-19, I believe there would be many stories, many investigative stories about that very COVID-19 saga, you know, all that happened, food, you know, all that happened with COVID-19. Do you feel as a person, maybe as a journalism player, do you feel that the media in Uganda did a good job with investigating what happened around COVID-19 and all that surrounded it?
I would say yes and no, and that may sound very academic, but I'm not judging. I think that there was a lot of attention towards like the reporting what was happening. Just what we could see, the numbers, the people dying all over the world, and providing information that was critical to supporting the communities to prevent the spread. That was really the objective of the media then. So also that meant that a lot of dirty stuff that happened in the background didn't get attention because people were just running, journalists are running towards like this press conference, the other press conference, and most of the media houses were lean on the ground because they had to create shifts. Yeah, they had to create shifts, and you have I'm assuming very little members. They definitely did ask questions around all these critical issues, but definitely there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done around that. So that's why I said yes and no. And I don't think the investigations are done. Like I think people can continue, journalists can continue asking those hard questions and investigating issues that, some people may think that are now under the carpet. Yeah, it's not over yet.
So that will be the end of the Expo on day 6, Saturday, 5th December 2020. And yes, we wait for 2021. But before I leave you,
yes,
let me go personal. I mean about you, your goals with the Media Challenge Initiative right from the start.
Why now?
I mean, I feel it's time we talk about it.
Okay.
So when you and your colleagues started Media Challenge Initiative,
yes,
it was very many years ago, I understand. To be many years. 8?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
8, am I accurate on that?
Yeah, 8 years.
So 8 years.
Yeah.
So that was 2012, and now it's 2020.
Yes.
What you maybe envisioned in your head when you started Media Challenge in 2012, do you feel now, 2020, right now, where we are, you've achieved it? Have you overachieved or maybe you've underachieved? Where do you gauge the whole vision you had from the start?
How do I answer?
How do I answer?
I think
that we have achieved.
I don't know if
under or over.
But
I am grateful to what we have achieved.
I would say.
Most important thing, I am grateful.
The team that we have built, very committed young men and women who go above and beyond to execute the work on a daily, and who are not just here to work, but they understand the vision of the organization. That we are building the next generation of journalists, and they also know that we really want to use that as a platform to create a better world through journalism. And for me, that's the most important part like if there's a big achievement, it's really that we have managed to stay together, we have managed to build together. And then the impact in the field out there is also very critical, seeing how many young journalists have gone through the platform, how many young journalists have been impacted through the platform. So it's a great achievement. I can go through like specifics, but we don't have all that time. The vision started, I mean, one of the things that I now believe is like any vision that starts out with passion is very strong and can last longer, especially when you begin to think about the business around it, because even passion has to, at a certain point, be driven by resources. So I am specifically grateful to that vision and how it has kind of like infiltrated through our young people who have ended up on different media platforms and doing good journalism, and understanding that it's not really just a job, but it's like a calling that they have to contribute to the society. Where MCI is going is also very critical at this point, because I know that we started as a ragtag army doing just, contests, but now we have moved away from that. We have a big space. We probably will also get a better and bigger space next year.
Yay!
Yeah. We've always had all these random dreams, and they're slowly coming step by step into reality. And I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure that a young journalist is really, we're building like a good cadre of journalists here in Uganda. And hopefully we can achieve that.
From what you've said, so we say no regrets.
No regrets. I have no regrets to have met a group of 4, not even 4, a group of like 6 or 7 young men and women when I was in school. I have no regrets working with them until now. So people like Simon, Peter, Antonio Chisembo, Ivan Chimuchigozi, Lutaya, and the team now. So for me, no regrets. And I think that at a certain point you might say, it's a lot of work, but it's just what comes out of it that's very important. So I can't have any regrets. Maybe this is what really God planned for us.
No regrets indeed, because
no regrets.
So dear viewer, thank you for keeping it here, because the MCI Media Expo, Media Challenge Expo is still ongoing. From yesterday up to Saturday, we are here, and we promise you that you will have a lot of learning. You'll have a lot of networking, and that is, Abbas always likes this word, if you're intentional.
Yeah, you have to be intentional.
Exactly, I know, it's a word you like, and I also fell in love with it, because in life, I believe if you are just moving around and not intentional about what you want to do, probably you'll have very many obstructions. So what you have to do is...
Also for you, really, I want to commend you. I've seen you for the last 3 or so years.
2017,
coming into all the competitions for young journalists, showing your passion and what you want to achieve. And it's really one of those things that you don't find a lot. So I've seen you grow, and I'm going to put you on the spot. So you are definitely, you have a great future. So keep being intentional.
Very much. I'm going to keep being intentional. And yes, the Media Challenge Expo. My name is Dana Evali, by the way, to remind you. I could have forgotten my name, that's important.
Put some respect on his name.
Yeah, and I'm your host today, and I promise you what is coming on later is something you don't want to miss. So, we have a session later, Bas.
Yes.
And it is almost time to go through
almost time.
Yeah, and I can see on my program here, we have Ibrahim Bossa.
Yes.
Yes, who is coming in on that session. We have Dapo Oluronyomi from Premium Times Nigeria CEO.
Yeah, that's one of Africa's, I would say Africa's legends when it gets to journalism.
Oh.
You should read his story, and he's one of my mentors, so I'm like sorted.
I know, I feel you. There's Kyle Clifford from Africa Check.
Yes. We've been working with Africa Check, so this is fact checking, and so it doesn't get better without Africa Check on it.
Yeah, and yes, that is keeping journalism alive, flattening the curve of mis or disinformation and trust through journalism, fact-checking, and media literacy. Abbas, I think for now I have to let you go and sit in the audience.
I'm happy to go.
Yeah, and I'm happy to host you today. I'm happy and I'm very honored to have you here.
No, thank you so much.
It's a rare honor to host the CEO of Media Challenge Initiative.
I'm humbled.
Yeah, so we are off and out for now. Let's take you to this that is coming next. My name is Dan Ayeval and welcome to the Media Challenge Fellowship.
It is something I was looking forward to. A lot of hard work was in there and trying so many times to be here, and finally I made it.
And I'm from Kampala University. Today is my first day at the fellowship and I've enjoyed the day because I got to meet my friends who I met at the Expo.
Hi guys, my name is Andrew Onen from Kampala International University. I'm grateful to be part of the MCI Fellowship 2020. I feel this is the turning point for me. I have a background of telecommunications engineering, but MCI made me know that I have a lot of talent in media, and I feel that this fellowship will make me be even better.
I've been here for a few hours, but it's so exciting to be around like-minded, aspiring journalists. We've been talking about the upcoming program this week. We have investigative journalism from Solomon Serwanja, the latest Komla Award winner. And it's so exciting to meet him and to learn as much as we can about investigative journalism.
I'm so excited to be here. It is a great experience so far. I checked in a little bit early at around 3 and of course I can't wait to get started.
This is my first day of the fellowship program and well, for me the experience is good so far. We are just enjoying the spacious rooms, the environment is very nice.
Hi everyone, my name is Mahoros Kovia. I come from DJ University and I must say my day one is already exciting. I've gotten to meet various people that I met at the Expo, despite the fact that I am the only one from DJ University, but I'm excited. I've already met quite a number of very interesting people who have great insights that we actually shared.
Welcome to the Media Challenge Fellowship 2020.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka the last one, aka the dreaded voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the Expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move and you're going to see for yourselves. Judge, anyhow. Let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. I'm up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. How do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic...
The Media Challenge Expo 2020 themed on keeping journalism alive. The Media Challenge Expo 2020 themed on keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainty. And this is powerful for us because we really want to get journalists to care about the things that really matter to them. In most cases, journalists, we only report about issues of other people. And the Expo, traditionally we've always talked about refugees, climate change, women in media. This time around we decided to go home and talk about what's affecting us. So what you see here is basically the Media Challenge TV studio, where we get to produce this Expo virtually. It's hard. It's a whole routine. We have cameras here, as you can see. I'm not a camera person, but you have to do it. What has happened today is we had a session on solutions journalism, and I think that's really powerful for the industry to begin looking at what's working in our communities. How can we best report about those things that are working, rather than just continuously reporting about, you know, things that are not working, the riots. We should report about them, but we should also look at how we can use solutions journalism to change our communities.
Well, day one of the Expo was something I did not see coming, but initially it has been quite a different experience, because we've been used to having these physical expos where we are one-on-one and feel the touch. But with the come of the pandemic, and we see that we can send message through virtual means.
And for young journalists or maybe other journalists to be able to attend an expo, even when it's not physical, or even when they're at home, wherever they are, and learn and actually meet new people and I hope the entire expo will be the same way.
And people will live to say, and when a crisis of COVID-19 hit the world, the Media Challenge was up to the task, and we had the Media Expo. It's great, as it has always been.
So for the next couple of days, until the end of this week, we'll be focusing on other issues like fact-checking, countering disinformation, media viability, and finding some of the answers to the basic challenges that are facing the media industry in Uganda. All that will be produced here in the Media Challenge studios.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire
very first day of December 2020. I send you lots of positive thoughts this morning, and also to welcome each one of you that is joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and not forgetting on Zoom. Do remember you can be part of this conversation, but first of it all, we do want to send our shout outs to the partners of the Media Challenge Initiative, that is Conrad Adenward Stitan Media Challenge Initiative, and the United States of America Mission to Uganda, DW Academy, Made for Mind, and of course the Media Challenge Initiative. We do thank you for organizing such an amazing event for us to talk about keeping journalism alive. My name is Sandra Twinobio. I am a news anchor working with NTV Uganda. But before I was a news anchor, I was also a fellow of the Media Challenge Initiative. So I do associate with the Media Challenge Initiative. I I believe and work within the vision that they have for journalists in this country and Africa at large as well. I'm also the presenter of Eco Africa, an environmental show airing all across Africa, and it is co-produced by DW Academy, Channels TV Nigeria, and of course MTV Uganda. I am also the founder of Unemployment Ends With Me, this initiative that works towards
contribution towards behavior change among young people to address the issues of unemployment in Uganda. We all know that young people are the majority in Uganda, so we want to contribute to that. So this morning, we'll have a panel discussion on keeping journalism alive and flattening the curve of misinformation, mis or distrust through journalism, fact-checking and media literacy. So if you're just joining us on our social media platforms, that is Facebook, we have YouTube and also Zoom, you can be part of this conversation, and you too can send us a chat as we carry on with this conversation on the different questions that you would want us to look at. Before I introduce our panelists this morning, I just want to comment on something little. COVID-19 really came like, you know, that visitor that comes that you've definitely not planned for. You do not know what they want to eat, what they like, how they associate with people. COVID-19 was that. No one was prepared for it. No one thought it was going to come. No one absolutely knew what it is all about. So everyone has been learning. It's been a journey of learning in different aspects for the different sectors, and it has affected so many sectors of the economy, but also it has changed the way we do things. For the journalists, they were equally learning, not knowing exactly where to pick the right information, and we were also just going with the flow. So this morning we just want to understand how we can ensure that we keep journalism alive at a time when everyone is talking about what they know, how it happened. How do we ensure that journalism stays? Citizen journalism is here to stay, but how do we ensure that professional journalism actually stays and it is believed? So once again, we know that what we discover about COVID-19, how it spreads, to whom and why, and how even best to mitigate it, simply all depends on information. Every single thing that you've gotten to know has been through information, and has basically been about what you find out on social media, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, in your WhatsApp. So everything that happens, the concoction that you should take, it's about the information that has been circulating. But the question is, how true is this information that you get? So once again, you can be part of the conversation on our Twitter platforms. It is at MCI Challenge. We have Facebook Media Challenge Initiative and Instagram Media Challenge UG. So you can send us all your comments, your thoughts on this panel discussion. So like I was saying, what we discover about COVID-19 is all depends on information. Fact-checking as an idea and a practice emerged in the early 21st century, and it was developed as a positive beacon to counteract or even respond to a growing sense that information could no longer be trusted, you know. So today we set out to understand how can we flatten the curve of misinformation in the era of COVID-19. Remember, I am a big believer that the right information delivered at the right time can be life-changing. And maybe also briefly to give you some bit of information on disinformation. If this is information that is false and deliberately created to harm a person, social group, organization, or even country. That is disinformation. Misinformation is information that is false but not created with the intention of causing harm. Malinformation is information that is based on reality, used to inflict harm on a person, social group, organization, or country. So as we go through this conversation, have these words, keywords at the back of your mind, so that you can always understand what we're talking about. I'll now introduce our very great panel that we will be having today. And I want to start with Ibrahim Bosa, who is the head of public and international relations at the Uganda Communications Commission. That is the communications regulator in Uganda. I'm sure you've heard of UCC. He has been at the commission for 8 years now, and before his appointment, he headed the Consumer Affairs Division of the of the Commission spearheading consumer protection and empowerment. So he is an experienced marketing professional and a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the United Kingdom. In addition to a master's in communications management, that is the University of Rwanda, Ibrahim holds a bachelor's degree in business studies from the Islamic University in Uganda and a postgraduate diploma in marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing, studying at the London School of Marketing. So it's a very big bio, but that's pretty much what you should know about Ibrahim Bossa, who's the head of public and international relations at Uganda Communications Commission. Welcome Ibrahim Bossa for joining us on this panel of keeping journalism alive and also flattening the curve of misinformation, disinformation, and fact-checking and media literacy. So we'll be picking your thoughts on that in a bit. Welcome. And we also have Kylie Clifford. Kylie Clifford joined Africa Check as a researcher in 2018. Since then, she has produced a number of hard-hitting fact checks on topics such as migration, health, crime, and the economy. She has also developed an interest in exposing online scams and hoaxes. Kylie has a first-class master's degree in international relations and is working with the United Nations to foster greater youth participation in democracies, and she feels strongly about access to accurate information, which in turn fosters a better decision-keeping. So there you have it, and just looking at our very last panelists, we are lucky today that we'll be having 3 of them. And we have Dapo Olorunyomi, who is a Nigerian journalist. He's a publisher, editor-in-chief of Premium Times, and this is an online newspaper. It is an online newspaper, and he's also the executive director of Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism, which today is one of the most trusted newspapers in Nigeria and a standard for African investigative journalism. Olorunyomi, who has dedicated his life to holding the powerful to account, is a fierce advocate for press freedom and is referred to by some as the godfather of online journalism in Nigeria. So a very good morning to all our panelists. I hope you can hear me clearly and you can see me clearly, because now we are turning all the eyes to you just to pick your thoughts on today's conversation. And I want to start with Dapo Olorunyomi, who is a Nigerian journalist and is the editor-in-chief of Premium Times, to basically give us his thoughts on keeping journalism alive, flattening the curve of misinformation and mistrust through journalism, fact-checking and media literacy. I should let all our 3 panelists know that you have about 5 minutes to take us through your presentations on what you think about keeping journalism alive and flattening the curve of misinformation. So I'll start with Mr. Dapo Olorunyomi, who is a Nigerian journalist. A very good morning, Dapo. We are glad to have you today on this panel discussion. We are eager to learn and hear from you. Over to you, Dapo. You have 5 minutes, and the rest of the panelists will also take over with their presentations.
Year 1 of the Media Challenge Expo 2020, themed on keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainty. And this is powerful for us because we really want to get journalists to care about the things that really matter to them. In most cases, journalists, we only report about issues of other people. And the Expo, traditionally we've always talked about refugees, climate change, women in media. This time around we decided to go home and talk about what's affecting us. So what you see here is basically the media.
I'd like to hear from you this morning on today's panel discussion. Over to you, Ibrahim Bossa.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to our viewers and our listeners. I want to be sure that I'm audible. If you could just give me a thumbs up to be sure that I'm well heard.
Yes, we can hear you loud
okay,
and clear.
Fantastic. Now, one of the key drivers of the growth of misinformation and disinformation, as well defined earlier, is the convergence of ICTs, information and communication technologies. This convergence phenomenon resulted into the integration or combining Excellent. This phenomenon has resulted into the integration or combining of different or discrete functionalities initially that we saw as separate. If you look at telecommunications, broadcasting, computing, and information technology, today we have seen them being combined into one single device, and that is the telephone. So the telephone has become a computer, it has become a camera, it has become a radio, it is a television, it is a shop, and for God's sake, it is a campus. And all these have been combined into one. And the fourth industrial revolution is right now also enhancing these further to create more convergences to make sure that we can benefit from them as people, as consumers, and as individuals. However, as a result of this, on the regulatory side of things, because I work for a regulator, we have made a number of observations. We have seen the growth of fake. And here fake, we are talking about fake photographs, fake profiles, dodgy applications, the so-called apps. We are seeing fake SMS messages. We are seeing fake versions of widely popular computing games. We are seeing fake reviews on the internet. We are seeing fake online personas. We are looking at fake news. We are looking at fake remedies now that we are in the COVID-19, and of course, many other legalities. Now, this also has diminished the public belief in aspects of health, aspects of science, aspects of intercultural understanding, and the status of authentic expertise. Today, we are grappling with guidance, with information that is being provided to the public in form of remedies, in forms of cures, and many people have all these sorts of beliefs that are creating a risk to public safety, public health, as a result of misinformation and at times disinformation. If I may just share the next slide so that people can see where we are. If you look at the purveyors of disinformation, these people are preying on the vulnerability or our partisan potential as recipients to be able to amplify and to amplify and multiply information, to spread it widely. In this case, we usually are sought by these purveyors to animate and become conduits of messages which are, of course, exploiting us because we have an urge to share. A research that was done by the peer review a few years ago, I think it must have been 2017, showed that African countries, and here African countries, they had surveyed South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, and I think Nigeria. We had a propensity to share misinformation, fake news, even when knowing that it is fake, compared to many other countries around the world. So you'll find that there is a particular danger that misinformation and disinformation, and if here I may call it now fake news in this case, is usually free. It is circulating around on our mobiles, on our broadcast stations. And therefore, this means that people, especially if you're in the countries like ours, who are either low developing countries or actually many people call them third world countries, people who cannot afford quality journalism and lack access to independent services of news media usually will be vulnerable to both disinformation and misinformation. Case in point, you may realize that in Uganda, when COVID started, I think COVID was announced in Uganda in March 2020, and the first passenger who is reported to have brought COVID flew in from Dubai. And an image was shared of an individual who was presumably the first COVID victim in Uganda. This was shared on the internet. This gentleman was actually stigmatized in his community, but it turned out to be that the image shared was actually false. It wasn't for that individual who actually had flown into the country. We had instances in Uganda, things we have dealt with as a regulator, where a lady claimed on social media, this time went on her WhatsApp, and this lady was a lawyer by profession, and claimed that there were piles of bodies of people who were dying of COVID, and the government was not actually notifying or making a record of them, either because of politics or because of accountability. And they actually did mention of a leading steel company that was part of this kind of purported crime. This was investigated. It was proved to be false. It was a hoax. But this is the danger of missing information. It kills reputations. It can kill a reputation of a country, a person, or even a company. We have had prominent faith-based pastors in Uganda. One prominent one, who is called Brother Ronnie Maccabi, who claimed on national television that he could actually cure COVID. So actually, masses of people, even those who were being attended to in hospital because of the COVID, were rushing out of hospital to go to be healed by the Son of God. And we know that science tells us a different story, and these are acts that basically mislead us in the way misinformation and disinformation is hurting us as a country. So in terms of a regulator, if you go to the next slide, in terms of the regulator, what are some of the interventions that we are seeing on the regulatory side? Uganda is applying existing media regulation to online news because we have seen a lot of online misinformation that has also traversed into the mainstream media. And we have also set up a cyber emergency response team. This cyber emergency response team is also equipped with a fact checker and basically to conduct assessments and continuous study on how misinformation is spread. The regulator in Uganda has also embarked on media literacy campaigns in a way of conducting awareness and sensitization. And this one is also usually comes with an element of prosecution. When we do sensitize and we feel that the people we are dealing with understand what needs to be done, we have also undertaken prosecutions of individuals, prosecution of media houses that we regulate, and basically following the applicable laws of the land. We have a number of laws like the Computer Misuse Act, the Uganda Communications Act, the Electronic Transactions Act that have aspects, including the Penal Code Act, that have aspects to do with the way we need to handle misinformation and disinformation and the like. We are also, if you look at the existing legal and regulatory framework in Uganda, it also supports broadcasters to ensure that their newsrooms, their setup systems are systematic in monitoring, in investigation, and of course in reporting on disinformation or misinformation. Usually broadcasters will have what we call editorial policies. So what we apply are what we call ex-ante regulations. And these are usually a suite of broadcasting standards. These would include the minimum broadcasting standards, which are famous now in Uganda, the professional code of ethics, the code of practice for broadcasters, the programming code, the religious code, the advertising code. All these basically have adequate provisions to help us to navigate, but also help the broadcasting sector to streamline how they capture news, how they report on news, how they broadcast on news, and how they can actually report on misinformation or disinformation. As a regulator in Uganda, we have also embarked on online public engagements, basically on digital platforms, because a lot of the misinformation and disinformation is born on digital platforms. And basically, this one is to create awareness on the creation of fake news and the possible consequences of peddling fake news. And of course, trying to make sure that people can either learn how to anticipate if you are targeted by malicious information, by malicious actors, and probably how you can report this information for either prosecution purposes, for investigation purposes, and things of the like. If you go to the next slide, please. So in terms of misinformation, especially because we do regulate the telecommunication, the broadcasting, the postal sector, and also content in terms of film exhibition, there has been a case in our observation as a regulator of what we can now comfortably refer to as weak journalism that falls short of its own promise. Problematic journalism may include, for example, aspects of incorrect errors that arise from poor research or sloppy verification. It could also include sensationalizing and exaggerating facts or what would be facts. It would also include hyper-partisan selection of facts at the expense of fairness. So as a regulator and a regulator of content in Uganda, as mandated by the Uganda Communications Act, we have dealt with content that is misrepresenting information, views, facts, and events that are being broadcast in a manner that is usually likely to mislead or cause alarm to the public. We have been dealing with content that has extremist or anarchic messages, including incitement of violence for political causes or other purposes. We are dealing with content, especially on broadcast media. Broadcast media, we are talking about the radio, we are talking about the television, we are talking about online. We are dealing with unbalanced content. And this one has the likelihood of usually inciting the public against of other members of the public. And usually, it is driven by political reasons, religious reasons, culture, or maybe some tribal affiliations. And we usually fear, as a country, but as a regulator, that usually this has a likelihood to create public insecurity and violence. So you may realize that as a regulator, what have we done about this? One, we take ex ante and ex post regulation, where we have standards, we have regulations, we have regulations. Recently, I think last year, actually the beginning of this year, around about March, we have 19 regulations that were put before the Parliament of Uganda, and which regulations included content regulations, because this is content on media or that is saturated with us. It has a very good coverage on how we deal with content. We have regulations on consumer protection, on how individuals, groups of individuals, organizations can actually exercise their rights to information, to access, but also the right to complain in terms of being affected by misinformation and disinformation. But we have also gone ahead to make sure that we expound our awareness, our sensitization through partnering with individuals who are usually better than us. We have a host of civil society and development agencies that we worked with, usually to amplify the issues of misinformation and disinformation. The last slide. So you will find that as a regulator of the communication sector in Uganda, and in respect to misinformation and disinformation, we recognize that disinformation is not a sideshow, and combating it, of course, is a mission critical to news, in terms of media, to regulators, to law enforcement, and of course, it is a civic duty. We are also alive to the need to have regulations that are sufficiently aligned to international principles, requiring the limitations, requiring that limitations on expression should be demonstrably necessary, should be proportional, and should be for a legitimate reason. We are also alive to concerns from freedom of expression advocates who fear that legislation in a country like in Uganda will hurt the very democratization of information and opinion that new technologies have come to enable. In these countries like ours,
you have just about a few seconds just to conclude.
and a sentence to make, that in countries like Uganda, much as that there are legislations and laws, and we know that media is critical in following laws and legislation that basically govern them, we need to work together as regulators, as civil societies, as freedom defenders, to make sure that we can improve the ecosystem of journalism, to make sure that it serves us in terms of information, in terms of entertainment, in terms of providing information. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim Bosse, who's the head of Public Relations and International Relations, that is Uganda Communications Commission, which is really a Ugandan regulator. He mentioned so many things, and I would like you all as well who are watching us this morning to, of course, send us your comments in our chat on Zoom or even on social media, Facebook, Twitter. Would like to hear from you on what you think of his presentation, and of course, type in some questions that we'll pose to Mr. Ibrahim Bosse, and he will be able to respond to them. You could be part of the conversation on our Twitter platform, that is at IMC Challenge UG, and of course Facebook Media Challenge Initiatives, and Instagram it is Media Challenge UG. Follow the conversation wherever you are using the hashtag Media Expo UG. Thank you once again, Mr. Ibrahim Bossa. You were very deliberate on informing us on the different forms of misinformation, disinformation, and how as a regulator you're trying to curb that, the different interventions, the cyber emergency team, of course, and also embarking on media literacy rates, online public. You mentioned of the weak journalism aspects of that we are seeing with incorrect errors and exaggerating and the like. And of course, we'll be coming back to you to ask you some of our other questions later. We'll now move on to our other panelists, and it will be important for also the other panelists to pay attention to that. It would be because the questions may just be falling into each other. We'll speak now to Dapo Olorinyomi, who is a Nigerian journalist. He is the editor-in-chief of Premium Times, an online Nigerian newspaper. He's also the executive director of Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism, which today is one of the most trusted newspapers in Nigeria and a standard for African investigative journalism. A very good morning, Mr. Dapo. We are glad to have you on this panel discussion this morning. You can just take it over. Would like to hear and learn from you. We know you're one of those people that have been, that are currently being respected for bringing all the leaders and corrupt leaders to book. So we want now to hear from you on what it means. We're in the COVID-19 era. How do we keep journalism alive? And mostly, how do we flatten the curve of misinformation, distrust through journalism, fact-checking, and also media literacy?
A wonderful invitation. I'm so delighted, and like to also say a very warm good day to other members of the panel. Thank you, Ibrahim, for that very sweeping, a very interesting and engaging presentation. And I'm going to borrow a little bit from a part of what you have provided as a background for us to understand how we might engage with this problem. I think first, one point that we need to make very clear with regards to misinformation and disinformation is to try to, get the definitional issues right. In many sense, people have used these terms in their very colloquial sense. Whereas if you look at the proper meaning and definition of what we call misinformation, it is indeed when you purvey untruths, but you do them without any intent. Intent is so important from a legal perspective, without any intent to cause harm. And often those who purvey misinformation do it out of ignorance. Indeed, that's the fundamental difference between misinformation and disinformation. So that whereas the intent is not to cause harm, often it's a matter of ignorance, fear, or people, you notice that many people who are your neighbors, who are your family members, when they circulate some of this wild information to you, sometimes it's just doing it because out of concern for the safety of family and things like that. But it still speaks fundamentally to a question of ignorance at that level. And I think it's so important to keep emphasizing and stressing the function of intent in purveying misinformation, because that's where it connects with regulators and with governments. So that if you look at the other side of the spectrum, disinformation really is malicious, is very intentional. People set out to hurt and to harm, to cause confusion, and so on and so forth. Now, this is a growing area in systematic study. And for that reason, literature is still very slim. And research is just growing at this point. But one thing that we know for sure at this point is that conditions that have enabled misinformation rather than disinformation are largely conditions of ignorance. You really don't know. Some people just, you send things to them. Genuinely, they believe this is true. But of course, it's not true. So that the question then is, if you purvey untruth on the point of ignorance, what then ought to be the response? I mean, from either a law enforcement response or, a regulatory response. My own view is that regulators in Africa are a little bit too quick to think that this is heaven's come down. And then they then move in and then try as much as possible, to use very strong arm tactics. This is so well known. I mean, from Nigeria this is what we are dealing with on a daily basis. We have just gone through a period of October to November in Nigeria of a very massive youth protest, which is, I'm sure you were familiar with this from Uganda, to call the End SARS movement, which basically is looking at policing culture in our country and asking that if Nigeria, that had signed to treaty obligations to ensure that torture as a means of law enforcement activities and practices are unacceptable. Our own constitution itself, just in 2017, we passed what is called the Anti-Torture Act. How come that you then have such an established, very mammoth, massive scale of police violence against so, of course, I'm just giving a background to that. But that provided a context for a whole lot of misinformation. People say, oh, this number of people died, this number of people. Of course, governments tend to panic in moments like this and then go after what they consider to be. I want to leave that very quickly, and then move to what I think we ought to be very concerned about, which is really disinformation. There's an Oxford study which looked about 90 countries all over the world. I don't believe that Uganda is on that study. Nigeria certainly was, and which overwhelmingly found out that globally, the greatest purveyors of disinformation are actually governments, and it's understandable, why this is so. But beyond government, there are also instincts and institutions and practices that privilege exceptionalism. And this is something you find where there's either religious conflict or ethnic conflict. So in context of conflicts, this is something that is very, very prevalent. I don't know whether this is something you grapple with in Uganda, but the classic example, of course, will then have been what happened in the genocide in Rwanda. We have cultural exceptionalism about this other culture. We are superior to this culture and things like that. It then lends to creating narratives that will then affirm to these kinds of practices. You can see that in this sense, the intent really is quite deliberate. It is calculated, and it's meant to create not only harm, but violence on those kinds of scale. So if you're going to punish someone with regards to his practice or relationship to information system, I don't think you can punish the guy who has done these out of ignorance in the same measure that you then try to they punish the guy who actually set up a whole cottage industry of lie telling and things like that. So I have identified cultural exceptionalities. I have identified governments as central. Definitely, the practice of religion is one area where we have seen the exponential growth of disinformation globally. And this is a little bit of that. I think Ibrahim spoke to it. We have notorious pastors here in Nigeria who, from ascribing COVID prevalence to 5G technology. It's just kind of wild, totally, just incredible kinds of narratives and things like that, And a lot of these you find in ages of uncertainty, when we're moving from one era to the other, or when we're moving from one system to the other, it creates anxieties. People are unsure of what is happening the next day, and they need to create narratives that will help provide some sense of accommodation, or, if you like, coping mechanisms on how to manage general uncertainties. So to that extent, it falls in place that the kinds of narrative that had followed the virus, COVID, quite consistent to what has happened in the virus of the 1908, where narrative, just crazy narratives were spawned. So this is not anything strange at all, and we just really have to address these things from the point of knowledge. One other area and one community that I think we need to, when we're trying to really locate the mechanics of disinformation, that I find is, within the academia itself, which is also a very strange thing, because this is a community of knowledge. So exceptionalism really grows, incredibly in, what you then call postmodern traditions of knowledge, oh, no, this is how we Africans behave. Oh, this is how we Ugandans behave. This is how we Nigerians behave. Often when you denote these kinds of statements and locate them in cultural practices, they are ahistorical. They don't, speak to moments in history. Yoruba in Nigeria, Yoruba culture of, 19th century, radically different in many regards to the 20th century culture and 16th century. So these kinds of ahistorical narrative. So, not to get into politics, I'm sure that Sandra is trying to weld the big stick. So how do we then address the issue? I'll just run through this in 2 minutes, if you don't mind. One, I think, and Ibrahim spoke very well about this, is media literacy. Literacy is very, very important because people need to know. And if you look at the categories of institutions that we're within the society, civil society, there's just a whole lot of that. So government has a responsibility to help provide mechanisms that help to inform people about what is true, what is right, and not necessarily try to, just create a sense of. Then secondly, explainers. I think there's a big burden on journalism, good journalism, which relies on accuracy. How we always say it, not all forms of media practices fall into the category of journalism. But what the practice of journalism insists on accuracy, it insists on verification, and then obviously independence and things like that. But the fact of of accuracy and verification are so central in the definition of journalism that one will hope that training and retraining will help to mainstream this kind of culture in media, particularly journalistic media, because they have this wide bandwidth of organized information, both production and distribution, and then they can really help in this regard. I think also governments need to engage with tech companies because, look, the truth is that fake news, if you call it in that colloquial sense, but misinformation or disinformation, these are not new phenomenon in our community. They are as old as. What has changed is that technology merely weaponized it and gave it some sense of fury and volume and perhaps, of course, virality. So the mechanism here is then technology. So the tech companies, countries that have done fairly well in this regard have engaged with technology companies, because if you look at it, most of the people in Uganda, like in Nigeria, who are really sharing a lot of misinformation are probably doing it with WhatsApp. And you can really solve 70% perhaps of the problem at a stroke by just finding a regulatory inkling. Yeah, so it's the lack of accountability in algorithm rather than, in the media as government mistakenly always look at it. So I will say just for now, that my hope is that we are able, institutions like MCI will be able to build in Uganda massive media literacy opportunities, and then carry the whole fact-checking processes to media houses themselves, help media houses set fact-checking desks within their operation and things like that, schools, communities, and so on.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Dabo.
Who's a Nigerian journalist, speaking to us on today's discussion around keeping journalism alive and also flattening the curve of misinformation. Well, as a journalist, you've focused more on some of the issues that we've seen arise from the COVID-19 misinformation that has been going on, and you emphasize the need to increase media literacy levels in all aspects of life. But we'll be coming back to you to ask you some bit of more questions on how journalists can ensure that even as they inform the public, what do they put in place to ensure that they're not pushing out a narrative that is not correct. Well, we will now move on to Kaylee Clifford, who has joined Africa Check as a research in 2018, and she has produced a number of hard-hitting fact checks on topics such as migration, we have health, crime, and the economy. She has also developed an interest in exposing online scams. She has a first-class master's degree in international relations. That's pretty much what we can know about Kaylee Clifford. And we're excited to pick your thoughts on fact-checking and the importance of doing that in this era of COVID-19, because any information that is wrong, that is pushed out there, can lead to worst scenarios. Over to you, Kaylee. Good to have you this morning. It is still a morning here in Uganda. Very good morning. Over to you.
Africa, and I'm a researcher at Africa Check. So maybe just for those who are unaware of our organization, Africa Check is the continent's largest independent fact-checking organization. We were founded in 2012 with just 2 members in our Johannesburg office, but we've grown a bit since then. So we now have a growing staff of about 30 and 3 more country offices in Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal. And the bulk of our work is really looking at claims that are made in the public arena, whether by politicians, public officials, media personalities, and checking whether what they say is true or not. And this is really with a view to holding people accountable for the things that they say and for the things that they promise, but also just to promote accuracy in public debate. We're also increasingly doing a lot of work on social media, on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. And this has become increasingly important as we deal with things like COVID-19. I really like this discussion that we're having around the definitions of mis and disinformation. We're quite finicky about those at Africa Check, and how intent is really a defining factor. My sense is that a lot of what we're seeing on social media when it comes to COVID-19 is misinformation. It's people that are concerned, they share WhatsApps, Facebook posts because they think that they may be helping people or they're a little bit worried about the situation. But I think what is important to remember is that even when people share things in good faith, it doesn't mean that that cannot be harmful. So it's definitely been a very challenging year for us. I think both Ibrahim and Dapo have done a great job of contextualizing some of the challenges that, fact checkers and indeed the media industry as a whole have faced. So I don't think I'll expand too much there. Maybe I will just hand back to you, Sandra, in the interest of time. But I'm really looking forward to unpacking some of these concepts further in the discussion. Sandra, you're muted.
Well, Kylie, thank you so much for joining us all the way from South Africa. And of course, for those that are joining us on online platforms, you can follow the conversation using the hashtag Media Expo UG. And
on Twitter, it is at IMC Challenge UG. Facebook, it's Media Challenge Initiatives, and Instagram, it is Media Challenge UG. Well, Kylie, I want to start with you to pick your mind on the role of media literacy and mostly why it is important for journalists to fact check. And for those that are watching us, send us your questions. We'll be pushing them forward to our panelists and getting to understand today's topic.
I always like to explain fact checking and the purpose of fact checking like this. As human beings, we're faced with many decisions, and sometimes those are small decisions that don't really have much of an effect. But we're also having to make much larger decisions about our finances and about our health and about our government. And when you don't have access to accurate information, making those decisions can become that much more difficult. And when you make a decision based off of false information, that can also have really devastating consequences. So fact-checking tries to avoid a situation like this. It says, here are the facts, devoid of any bias or opinion, and you can rely on this. When it comes to media literacy, though, this has always been a huge part of our work at Africa Check. I think even before COVID-19, there was this understanding that try as we might, we can never possibly address every single piece of misinformation that's out there. We don't have the time and we don't have the manpower. But if we can share tips and share skills with people on how to identify misinformation for themselves, then that is probably a much more effective way of tackling this challenge. So we have always tried to promote things like guides that help people to fact check for themselves. So things like how to identify a job scam online, how to vet information during a pandemic, or 5 questions to ask yourself before you forward a message on WhatsApp, for example. But we've also recently started to put our weight behind full-blown media literacy campaigns. So we had one recently that ran from June to October this year, looking at mostly health misinformation and how to fact-check that on your own. And it was in the form of 2 to 3 minute long voice notes that we sent over WhatsApp in English, in Kiswahili, and also Wolof to try and reach as many people as possible. And the reception to that's actually been quite great. People seem to really appreciate the topics that we covered. And then we also did accompanying graphics to share with people online on platforms like Facebook and Twitter to try and reach as many people as possible. And I think also from an organizational point of view, what has been a lesson for us is that this content we've created is really evergreen. So it's content that will be relevant going forward, and we can share it again and again. So definitely a very worthy investment, and something that I think fact-checking organizations will be looking to more and more.
Really work on timeline. Sometimes you really have 5 hours, to bring a story to life.
Sandra, you have to unmute.
Okay. Great. Kylie, we know that journalists are always working on timelines. You know, sometimes you have 5 hours to really produce a story. What is the best advice you can give the journalists watching today? What are the different apps or different channels or different links they can use to verify something in the shortest time possible before they can produce a story? Because it's one of the challenges that journalists face, you know.
Excuse me, that's...
Okay.
I'm so sorry about that. I just had to cancel the phone call. It was going to be interrupting. So yes, there are a number of things that you can do. What I usually try to encourage anyone who receives a message that they think might be a little bit suspicious is first actually just to pause, because a trend that we noticed that disinformation often plays on people's emotions. So you receive a message on WhatsApp and it immediately kind of gets your emotions up. You're scared, you're worried, and disinformation plays on that. In that moment, you're more likely to press share and forward that message on. So a good habit is actually just to stop and take a moment and think, could this message possibly be true? And try to do what you can to verify it for your own. The internet is a really great place to start. I always say that Google is your friend, so don't be afraid to just plug in a message into a search bar and see what is being said. The likelihood is that if it is correct, it would have already been covered by a credible news organization or a credible organization like the World Health Organization. So have a look at what is being said online, and if in doubt, just don't pass it on.
Checking, I would like to move to
Mr. Ibrahim Bosa. I want to believe you're still with us. We know that you recently started a new fact-checking initiative during the COVID-19 period. You know, take us through, has it worked and has it guided your decision making in this period?
And especially to my fellow panelists. The decision to begin a fact checker was largely driven by the misinformation and some of the disinformation that was circulating during the COVID period. And for that point in time, I think it served its purpose. However, we are looking at expounding it beyond COVID issues. Especially, we have capacity and capability in debunking images, for example. A lot of images usually are circulated to be purported to come from a certain location, supporting different facts, and well, they're not correct. There is also issues of videos usually that circulate. Some videos are not probably from the country, but they're used to illustrate a fact, which usually ends up to be misinformation. So yes, because of the capabilities, we are stretching it further to that regard. The challenge we have faced that because the regulator in Uganda is also mandated to receive and investigate complaints of services in communication services, 70% of the information coming through our fact checker are complaints on services delivered on telecommunication, broadcasting, and the like. So we still have a mountain to be able to educate our audiences on what information that can be fact-checked and what information is for investigation, for information, or things of the kind. However, we have established a WhatsApp number where people can contact the Commission. If you see something on social media, if it's on Facebook, Instagram, it's on Twitter, you can take actually a screenshot and be able to send it to the cyber emergency response team through the WhatsApp number, and they will be helping to be able to debunk such facts. We also use information that is already readily available, especially from other fact checkers. Usually, if something has already been debunked, and usually people are aware on how to be able to access this information, we would basically just be helping to spread the good news of something that has already been debunked. So our intermediate basically response here and intervention is one, to be able to use our capabilities, especially in debunking, especially if you look at images, videos, and things of the like, but also be able to look for relevant information online that is already probably fact-checked, already debunked, and be able to readily make it available to the people we deal with. The fact checker is also empowered with a blog where this information can be disseminated. It's also powered by an email, and it is hosted, of course, on the Cyber Emergency Response Team website. So it is still in its initial stages, but you also know that we suffer from the understanding that fact-checking usually is desired for independent and so-called non-partisan institutions, okay? You find that we as a regulator, we are a government agency per se, so you'll find that probably the appeal of what we do, we also have people who have alternative views on what exactly we are doing. But at the end of it all, we feel that we are serving a purpose to help those people who need urgent information, especially information that may be authentically provided by a regulator for purposes of decision making. Thank you.
Going to the point where you said usually people are looking at you as a government agency.
So whatever you do, people usually say it is in support of the government. And speaking about that, we'd like to pick your thoughts on how, as UCC, you try as much as possible to control misinformation while also allowing freedom of speech.
That is a brilliant one. First of all, it is important for our viewers and listeners to understand that the actions of the regulator are directed, are governed by a legal and regulatory framework. What am I saying here? Any action, any intervention of a regulator, whether in form of prosecution, either in form of penalties, either in form of suspension of licenses, because of a harm, an offense that has been done under the law, can actually be challenged legally. We have had many people of a regulator. That alternative redress mechanism is an example of how people can exercise their rights and freedoms. Meaning that if something can be interpreted differently legally, but the decision has been made by a regulator against you, or maybe not in your favor, you have the opportunity and ability to appeal to a tribunal or to a court of law. But secondly, we have taken initiative to work very closely with development partners, with civil society, and freedom defense. We usually make appearances with like the Human Rights Commission, the Freedom Defenders, and so on, to debate and exchange. These debates and exchanges are relevant to reinforce the way we look at the legal and regulatory framework when dealing with the regulation of media, to make sure that it is acceptable in a free and democratic society, is proportionate to expectation, and is legal at the end of the day. So it is important that that is seen through at that point. However, as a regulator, thirdly, we also have an open door policy. Usually, every intervention of the regulator will be preceded by an engagement. If we are intervening, we are basically enforcing, for example, a legislator, we give opportunity, okay? Any individual who may be facing wrath of the law or the regulator under our legal dispensation, as a regulator, we give them hearing, at a defense, to presentation, and that is where a determination is made. So usually, by the time the regulator makes a determination on an issue, on any case, you will find justified, it is acceptable under the Constitution of Uganda, and probably we are able to defend it in any alternative redress mechanism that somebody may seek. Thank you.
Here that I see online. Please unmute him. So There's a question here. It's pretty much related to what I just asked, but someone here is saying, thank you, Mr. Ibrahim, for the presentation. As a regulator, what steps are you taking to manage violation of the rights of information carriers by mainly those in authorities you serve?
Violation of information by carriers. I want to assume that this is information that could be kept by bodies or providers that we license. Like telecommunication companies usually have a lot of personal information that they collect. You would expect that now to be also going into the broadcasting area, because now we have digital content and sometimes you have to subscribe with your credentials. So how is this information kept safe, if that's the question I find? We are lucky that now in Uganda, we have the Data Protection and Privacy Act. And we as a regulator, it's incumbent on us to enforce this law within the contracts we sign with licensed providers of communication services, whether it is telecommunications, broadcasting, postal, or film exhibition. So there is an element of privacy and elements of confidentiality of information that is kept. These entities usually have to demonstrate the policies and the frameworks they have put in place internally to make sure that personal information that is given to them by customers is kept safe and cannot be shared by third parties. These frameworks are usually approved by the Commission, and usually they are looked into by experts to see that they meet the requirements of some international standards, especially on privacy and data protection. But the coming into force of the privacy and data protection law in Uganda is a big win for the country, and we are looking forward to the regulations that accompany this act to make sure that its implementation is effective.
All right. Now going to getting the mind of a journalist, I want us to speak to Dapo, and just to pick your general experience in this pandemic. How would you say the journalists have dealt with the misinformation?
Sorry about that. Yeah. I think at the beginning it was a little bit challenging for particularly the African media. One, we were coming into the pandemic with a lot of, I think the level of preparation is a little bit low. I can talk very directly about in Nigeria. So the first wave of attitude in the media basically it's just to be repeating, government case counts, so it's case count. Whereas, there are a lot of issues about, the accountability process in procurement, and these are very important issues. There's also the whole question of the privacy rights of people, journalists initially would just rush in. It was a very voyeuristic kind of coverage, I would say, initially, without respect to the rights of people who had fallen ill or who passed on. So, we just kind of put it out there. But I think with time, people were getting together, and it's, I think we've been far better than it was initially. I still think there's still a whole lot, that we are learning as it's going because of, our relationship with the science communities and the place of science journalism in most newsrooms. People are not very, very literate about a whole lot of issues. So they still generalizing knowledge rather than providing depth. But now, I think Kale raised an important issue. The African, the fact-checking community in Africa is building information that's now helpful for journalists. And that's really, I think we're working both with the WHO and with the African Center in Ethiopia. So things are getting better now than it used to be. But by and large, I would still say that our practice needs some elevation and some knowledge base.
Okay, well, staying with you, Dapo, the issue of fact-checking, the journalists, just to also get a feel of what is happening in Nigeria, are they aware that it is important to fact-check, or is it a phenomenon that they are still grappling with to understand? Is it something that you do, considering you work with the online platform? Is it something that you do on a day-to-day basis? Are journalists aware of something like that?
Well, yeah. So, Africa Check first helped to pioneer the fact-checking process, and it caught on. So in Nigeria, we also have a platform called Dubawa, which is a Nigerian name for verification. That platform has helped to promote the culture of fact-checking. Africa Check also has an office in Nigeria. So promoting this culture in newsrooms and then also using broadcast platforms to help educate people. I think, but beyond the fact that, we have to do this, it's also imperative for journalism today, when trust is really a major problem for most newsrooms. That the more we deepen the factual quotient in our reporting, the more engaged we can be with our readers. So fact-checking really is a major imperative if we want to repair some of the lost grounds that we've had with relations to our audience and so on and so forth. So I see there's great momentum in Nigeria. I can say today that when we started probably about 2 years ago, just a handful. But now, there's no major newspaper or broadcaster in Nigeria that's not accommodating some kind of fact-checking protocols into its news reporting.
Okay, so this is a question that is going to go to all the panelists. Someone here, I think it's Hassan, who says that if we present all tools of understanding to the public, then ain't we thinning our relevance as journalists in society? And the reason as to why I think this question should go to all the panelists, because for Kylie, you're into fact-checking, so we would want to pick your thoughts on why it's important for journalists to reveal that they actually fact-check something, a tool that they use. And of course, for Mr. Ibrahim, would you say it is important for the same tools that journalists use to be given out to the general public, of course, to address the issue of misinformation? And as a journalist, and in fact, I'll start with you, Dapo, is it okay for journalists to reveal the tools that they use to verify information?
Oh, do you want me to jump in first?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. I think it's also part of the problem that journalism is facing, which is creating the deficit of trust, that we're not being open enough, transparent enough with our readers or consumers of our content. I think it's absolutely helpful because it then provides assurances for the community that, so this is it. Then it's, the second level to that is that it then empowers the community itself. It empowers the citizens to be able to use those tools to do what you might call a do-it-yourself kind of protocol with regards to something that we all know, without doubt, that is so patently harmful for the community. I would say yes.
Okay. So, Dapo, you say it is okay to reveal the different tools that journalists use to the general public. And Mr. Ibrahim Bosa, would you say it's okay to reveal to the general public the different tools that journalists use to verify information?
Absolutely, and I want to agree with Mr. Dapo. In the regulatory landscape, we have always faced a challenge where people ask that who regulates the regulator? So if I take the same into fact checking, the question is who checks the fact checker? Who fact checks the fact checker? So meaning that if journalists are going to be able to build or rebuild trust again in our professional journalism as we know it, they may need to be able to have other third parties be able to verify the same information they're disseminating. If somebody is able to cross-check independently of yourself, of a story, of a fact that you put out, and they find that it's correct, that means that the building of the fact, or the building of trust now begins to become relevant, and that is where communities can, one, on their own, independently verify some information, but they're able also to trust the information that journalists give them, because at any question, they can be able to verify this kind of information. So I think there is no harm in that, and we as regulators have tried as much as possible to make regulation standards transparent, so that anybody understands what we are doing, how we are doing it, when we are doing it, and what the consequences could be. If you are all reading from the same script, I think there is success on both sides.
All right, thank you, Boss. Kylie, is it okay for journalists to reveal the different tools that they use to verify information to the general public? Because someone here was asking that this is likely to take away the relevance of journalists in society.
Absolutely, it's okay to share, and not only tools, but methodology too. I mean, it's as Ibrahim has said, we get this question all the time, who fact checks the fact checkers? And the answer to that is you do. I mean, anyone who has access to our work also has access to our methodology, where we explain how we did the fact check in a step-by-step process. We write up our findings in very simple, accessible language. We link to all of our evidence. We name all of our sources, so that if you would like to cross-check that for yourself, you may do so and see why and how we came to the answer that we did. And it's, as Ibrahim and Dapo have said, that fosters a culture of trust, but it also empowers people to be able to then go ahead and fact check for themselves in areas that maybe Africa Check or other fact checking organizations might not have access to.
All right, Kagenda Edward says that, and this is to you, Mr. Ibrahim, considering you're here representing the Ugandan regulator. They're saying that, thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. What is considered as misinformation to the public is feeding our audiences with false information. Is cutting off radio stations where opposition leaders are having programs considered preventing misinformation by UCC?
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe the question may also not have enough facts in it, so it could also be a misinformation in itself. One, as earlier probably mentioned, every action of the regulator can be cross-checked, can be benchmarked on a legal and regulatory instrument in this country. The regulator does not take any action outside its mandate. And we ensure we don't do that simply because we know that any action from the regulator is a sentence away from the courts of law. So sometimes what we have seen as opposition candidates probably being denied access to radio stations is not ideally the act of the regulator, but we have other agencies in this country that have mandate within the same space, especially the security agencies. So there could be other reasons other than the provision of a service, other than information, entertaining, and providing news that could be facilitating that. What we have guided as a regulator, because the broadcasters in this case are part of the problem, when faced with such an instance, they have a provision to appeal to the regulator, because we have a mandate to arbitrate, to investigate, and to also receive complaints. And we are able, if we find that there's something that requires us to arbitrate, we will engage other agencies of government on their behalf. So the important thing here to know is that there are other players that have a jurisdiction within this landscape that may have to act either on national security issues, maybe acting on many other aspects other than the regulation of communication. So it is important that we have those lines open. If a radio station is being threatened, if somebody has given you notice, it's important that you can cross-check that with the regulator. We'll be able to confirm, because our processes are very transparent. Every communication of the regulator actually is usually put in writing. The reason is because that is guided by law in terms of our procedures and practices, that in case you end up in a court of law, somebody may want to examine the due process end to end, so that somebody knows what happened, when did it happen. All these things have to be put on paper. So that is why we usually deal with formal aspects. That's why when we're talking about complaints, it is nice for people to formally complain to the regulator, so that people do not see the regulator as acting arbitrarily, okay? So that we have something that is formal and we will act on it in accordance to the law.
All right, could you please once again maybe share the commission number, maybe the toll-free and the number people can reach out to? You mentioned it at some point, but would like you to say it again, because I see people are asking for it here as well.
We have made it easy for the public and individuals to be able to reach the regulator. We are the first communication regulator in Africa to have a call center. In the past, communication regulators had nothing to do with the public. We all focused on the people we license. But in Uganda, we realized that the impact of the people we license on the public is also of paramount importance to us. Satisfaction is important to us. So we have a toll-free number backed up by a call center. This toll-free number is 0800 222 777. And you can also feel free to engage us on our social media platforms. We are very vibrant on social media, or you can actually send us an email. We are always very happy to help.
Okay. Edward's question has been answered, and all the other questions to our panelists. Well, also staying with you, Ibrahim Bosse, you seem to have so many questions here. Fidel Obwalinga is saying that what has the regulator done to protect journalists who always document killings by the state agents, especially during riots, because these journalists have become a prime target in recent days?
This is a discussion we should have, and it could be a lengthy discussion. We have opened the doors to have this kind of discussion because specifically for journalists, we have the Media Council in Uganda that actually regulates journalism or the journalist practice, okay? The beauty is that we work very closely with the Media Council to be able to tackle problems within the media space. The Uganda Communications Commission as a regulator, we regulate media houses. We do not regulate journalists. However, we are always happy to help where the interpretation of an issue crosses within our legal and regulatory framework. But to start us off, recently we held a meeting, a very high-level meeting between stakeholders in this space, which included the Uganda Police, included the Uganda Electoral Commission, included the Media Council, included the Human Rights Commission, ourselves, and a number of other agencies to discuss that very question, the safety, the protection of journalists as they go about doing their duty. The number of proposals that were put forward, and many of we stakeholders appreciated them. We only have to wait to see how they're implemented. But you know, even when implementation fails, we need that feedback to be able to recalibrate the process so that everybody is happy. So that is a very long conversation per se, but we are open to discuss that, to make sure that journalists are safe in this country as they do the wonderful job of informing us and providing news to us.
Thank you, Bosse. And moving on to Dapo, still in the same vein of journalists feeling insecure. I do not know how you feel about the safety of journalists, especially in riots and very unsafe situations, Mr. Dapo. But take us through how best you think a regulator, for instance, or the government can create a safer space for journalists to carry out their job in ensuring that they inform the public with correct information as they do the different fact-checking that we were talking about today? How best can a regulator, for instance, and even the government create a favorable environment for journalists to do their work?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So I was saying that it seems to me that the regulators who historically have been able to do better job at helping to protect the rights of journalists with regards to their coverage, their work, and so on, have been those that report directly to Parliament rather than to the executive. And there are not too many of them. I suspect probably South Africa is then Ghana. Definitely, you know, these two countries. My suspicion also is that Namibia has this type of guarantee. But otherwise, you know, because the regulators that are executive branches and law enforcement is always, you know, an executive branch institution, and so it's always going through such prism. But it helps also, and the kind of vibes I'm getting from Ibrahim is that, you know, individuals who are more rights conscious, even if they are executive branch officers, can do a better job. But at the end of the day, you know, I think it's not so much for the regulator as much for the industry itself, for journalism, through their associations to always put the case of their freedom, and also for the society, you know, to find a way that society will come to appreciate that, you know, you can't have democracy if you don't have good journalism. And to that extent, you know, it's not so much a favor, it's an obligation. And often all governments have themselves signed to treaties. I mean, Article 19. I don't know any of the African countries that have signed United Nations Human Rights Declaration or the African Charter. Here in West Africa, we have what we call the ECOWAS Protocol. They all make cases about, you know, our right to be able to function, and but you know, that has not stopped violation. In Nigeria alone this year, I think we have 155 violations. A whole lot of it during the EndSARS movement, just a month or two ago. We're counting. There's still a whole lot of argument about that. Whether 7 journalists probably lost their lives throughout the country. So this will always be the case, but this, we have to constantly fight to expand these frontiers of freedom and the liberties of the professional, knowing full well that journalism does not work well, then, you know, democracy will probably
All right, Kylie, just to pick your thoughts on the same matter, considering you work closely with AfriChecking and fact-checking all the time, sometimes it can put you in positions that are very compromising. I do not know if it has happened to you, but if it has, how best do you think, when journalists find themselves in such a position, can they go about it? And two, how can, in your situation, your country or the place you work, the regulators or the administrators, what kind of, how best can they create an environment that enables journalists to look for the information they need, to fact check while keeping their lives safe?
So this is a bit of a tricky one in terms of the work that we do at AfricaCheck. But I think it comes down to basic principles of independence and impartiality. When it comes to, whether you're a journalist or a fact checker, your work needs to be based on these principles, and that's how we tend to approach these kinds of issues. And also just making sure that in any one debate you're not too focused on either one side, that we are balanced in the way that we approach controversial situations. In terms of mis and disinformation and how journalists can access correct information and also maintain their safety is also tricky. In South Africa, there was a lot of talk around the criminalization of sharing false information, and a lot of debate around whether something like this could work. And of course, the first question that comes up then is this question around intent. So how do you differentiate between a journalist who shared something because they weren't aware that it was false, or a journalist that did it with the intent to cause harm? So it's a very fine balancing act, because you understand from one point of view the need to want to try and curb any harmful consequences that can come from false information, but at the same time we run the risk of driving false information into areas which fact checkers cannot access. So maybe instead of posting something on Facebook or Twitter on a public platform, we might see this misinformation spreading in places like WhatsApp, where we don't actually know what's happening and we can't address it. So a very tricky challenge, and one which I think is going to need more discussion and more research around.
All right, so as we come to the end of our conversation today, I just want to give each of our panelists, Dapo, Ibrahim, and also Kylie, maybe like 40 seconds as we move forward. What should we prioritize in order to keep journalism alive with the different issues that we've talked about? Misinformation, disinformation, citizen journalism that is also very common nowadays. How do we flatten the cap of misinformation this era? I want to start, they always say ladies first, so I want to start with Kylie as we conclude.
I'll touch on something that Dapo said in the beginning, that it's true that we have never dealt with mis and disinformation on such a large scale before, but it's not a new phenomenon. So I think that if we can stick to the basics, our current approach will work. That's not to say, though, that there is no room for improvement, because I think that there is. A challenge that fact checkers have faced even before COVID-19 is this known fact that the correct information never quite travels as far as the original piece of misinformation. How do we deal with that? I think the answer may lie in things like artificial intelligence to try and limit the space between those two things. And also COVID fatigue. So how do we continue to make sure that people have access to accurate information when they're tired of hearing the same thing over and over again? And I think the answer to that lies in experimenting with different types of content in different formats and across different platforms to try and make sure that our content is still engaging and maybe entertaining, but still does the job that it needs to do and is still valuable and informative.
All right, Ibrahim, what are your thoughts on what we can do as we continue to flatten the cap? In just a few seconds as we conclude this conversation, we're in the era of misinformation, disinformation, and the like. What would you say?
Thank you very much. I strongly believe that the key is still with media and journalists. I believe that media and journalists should complement fact checkers or fact checking organizations by verifying questionable claims that are presented by sources reported in media or that are appearing on social media. Because I know that reporting on this information actually also sells. People want to know when this information is debunked. Therefore, the ability of news practitioners to go beyond the he said, she said kind of journalism and to investigate the genuineness of claims made by those being covered, I think should be improved. In that way, we will have a platform, or we'll have platforms that are building trust, and where people find or come across misinformation or disinformation, they have a platform where they can cross-check, cross-reference information. Today we know that when an aspect breaks on social media, people will still wait to see whether it is covered in the news bulletin. People will wait to see if national television covers it. People wait to see whether it is reported in the newspapers, simply because media and journalists still hold that trust that they can investigate, they can debunk, they can cross-check facts for people to be able to make meaningful decisions. So I think that is a very important area which should be backed up by a lot of awareness, a lot of sensitization, so that people do not similarly believe everything that they see, but they know the avenues where they can actually cross-check such facts.
All right, and finally, Dapo Olorunyomi, a journalist from Nigeria. As we conclude, what should we look at as a way to flatten the curve of misinformation, and also how we can keep journalism alive?
Quite frankly, I'll just be parroting Ibrahim and Kali. The truth is that what they have said, I agree. We really have to emphasize the fact that journalism will only be relevant to the extent that we keep making claims accurate, if we keep verifying, and therefore providing effective professionalism. That's how the community will trust us, and then that's how we become very valuable to the whole enterprise of democracy building and development in the country and in the region. By the way, I'd just like to say one quick thank you to hear a regulator like Ibrahim speak in the way I've encountered too many strange regulators in the region, and it's quite heartwarming to see, very thoughtful, and I know you serve the government, but it's very clear to me that your heart is also for rights and democracy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dapo Olorunyomi, for
Premium Times Nigeria. You're the CEO. Thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts and how we all can keep journalism alive. I do also want to thank Mr. Ibrahim Bosse, who's the head of Public and International Relations, Uganda Communications Commission, for creating the time and getting us in the know of the different interventions UCC is putting in place. We do hope people that are watching us online have picked the number, and just in case they have to communicate and want to reach out to UCC, they can be able to do that as well. Kylie Clifford from Africa Check Fact Checker, we do thank you for joining us this morning. It is already an afternoon this side of Uganda, so we appreciate. I want to believe in South Africa it's the same as well. But we thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone online has learned something, especially if you're a journalist. You've picked 1 or 2, 3 things to use in your day-to-day life. We all know we'll continue to battle the issue of misinformation. We'll need to learn how to fact check. We'll need to to do the extra mile to make sure we verify the information that we'll be putting out there. And also, just to add on everything that they've said, the biggest challenge as we speak in media industry and the world at large will forever be fake news, and we know fake news can cause harm, can lead to very extreme situations. So I want to believe that all of us today have been able to understand the impact of misinformation before you get that message in your WhatsApp and you forward it to another person, or you paste it on your WhatsApp status. I hope that you are aware that it is important to first of all verify, is it from an authentic source? Do you trust that source? So that you don't end up really causing havoc and excitement, inciting violence that may not be that necessary. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us under this very moment. Allow me invite the CEO of Media Challenge Initiative, Mr. Basim Pindi, to give his remarks on this panel discussion. A very good afternoon, Mr. CEO Basim Pindi. The floor is all yours. It's all yours.
Thank you, Sandra. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you so much for deliberating and moderating this session. Wonderful job done, and I must say I'm really proud of you. Thank you to Depo, who is also my mentor, for joining us from Nigeria. Thank you to Ibrahim Bosa, coming through at this time when you have a lot of work to be doing. And Kyle from South Africa. Say hi to the Africa Check family. I think this was the best panel to have on this session to really talk about this issue of flattening the curve of the infodemic. And I am very sure that our young journalists and the media fraternity in Uganda that is following, you've picked a couple of lessons, Sandra, as you have highlighted that. Just a few things. I think one of the key highlights for me was the reality that to keep journalism alive, we must protect it from anything that dilutes the facts. So that starts with journalists being able to empower themselves with various tools and for fact-checking. And for young journalists, really to think about this as a unique selling point, that once you go to any media house and say, I am a fact-checker, you are not just a reporter, you are more than just a reporter, you're a fact-checker. So, and it's not rocket science, it's a skill that you can learn. So we really encourage that if you're a young journalist, take up initiative to learn about fact-checking and the tools you can use for fact-checking. I want to end, because this is really Zoom, you can't take a lot of time giving closing remarks. So I want again to thank you, Sandra, and thank Deco, and thank Kyle and Ibrahim for joining us. And also, we must thank our partners, DW Academy, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, the US Mission in Uganda, and the European Union, who are supporting us on project. Our desire to keep journalism alive in times of uncertainty is real, and we are committed to that. It's not just an expo, a discussion that we are holding, but we're really going beyond that to practice through empowering young journalists, through making sure that they're exposed, making sure that they know more than they can study. So, those few remarks, I want to also thank my team that is behind all the work, making sure that this expo is produced very well virtually. So, back to you, Sandra, in the studio. I'm sure you have Daniel, one of our 2020 fellows, who is there with you. So you guys can wrap it up and send us home. Tell us, Sandra.
Okay, thank you so much, CEO Mr. Basim Pindi, for the remarks on this panel discussion. Allow me to invite Daniel Ayebade, who is a Media Challenge Fellow 2020. I'm not sure if he's going to be interviewing me, or I'm going to be interviewing him, asking him what his takeaways from this discussion are, and want to start from that.
To be sure, the floor is still yours, so
I get to ask the questions.
We can ask each other anyway, but thank you very much, Sandra, for that amazing session you had on Zoom. It is something any young journalist or any young person out there trying to fight fake news or disinformation would have looked up to. So I thank you, and thank you for coming today. We are happy to have you here at the Media Challenge Expo 2020, which went virtual. But we thank God that we are alive and we are here right now today.
All right, so we started at about 11:30, and here we are getting to 1 p.m. What are your key highlights of the session?
I had my notebook here, and I could say major highlight from the UCC spokesperson, if I'm right. He said that the regulation, actually, he said it comes after engagement. That was one of the highlights. It is really tricky for you to come and just say, okay, I'm arresting you or something, but you don't really engage me about what I've done, or maybe what has gone wrong. And another one is about their WhatsApp line. If you have something you think is fake news, or is something that is really not right, what you think is really disinformation or misinformation, you can take a screenshot and send to them. So it is good that they are easily reachable, the UCC, and anyone, I mean, even the citizens, not only the journalists, can really play a part in that. And also maybe another one is that they all said, maybe if I remember very well, our panelists, that it is okay for journalists to share their tools, the tools they use to do fact checking and debunking all the misinformation and the disinformation. I mean, I also buy into that because the citizens have to get involved in this as well, because they are the real people who are affected by the misinformation and disinformation.
All right, I think it is time for me to hand over to you.
Yeah, it's time for you to hand over. Once again, on behalf of the Media Challenge Expo 2020 and the Media Challenge Initiative, we are happy to always have you back. A Media Challenge kid you are, and a Media Challenge kid you are, and anytime you want to come back, you're always welcome. This is the Media Challenge Initiative. Thank you, Sandra. Dear viewer, tomorrow is day 3 of the Media Challenge Expo. We are virtual. Don't expect us to go physical, but the virtual experience comes with a different experience. I mean, different chances to learn, to have many more days. I mean, 6 days this time around, as opposed to what used to be 3 days when you were physical. Very many topics to discuss, very many panels coming up. And tomorrow, let me introduce the guys who will host you. They are 2020 Media Challenge Fellows. One is Joseph El Shaddai Sebandeke, and another one is Rahim Nwali. They will be here, right here where I'm standing, and they'll be able to take you through the program for tomorrow. But for today, we are happy that you kept it here, and we hope that you keep with us throughout the day, because we are not yet done for today. My name is Dan Ayevale. Till tomorrow, when I hand over to El Shaddai and Rahim.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
My name is Dan Ayebel and welcome to the Media Challenge Fellowship.
It is something I was looking forward to. A lot of hard work was in there, and trying so many times to be here, and finally I made it.
And I'm from Kampala University. Today is my first day at the fellowship, and I've enjoyed the day because I got to meet my friends who I met at the Expo.
Hi guys, my name is Andrew Onen from Kampala International University. I'm grateful to be part of the MCI Fellowship 2020. MCI Fellowship means a lot to me. I feel this is the turning point for me. I have a background of telecommunications engineering, but MCI made me know that I have a lot of talent in media, and I feel that this fellowship will make me be even better.
I've been here for a few hours, but it's so exciting to be around like-minded, aspiring journalists. We've been talking about the upcoming program this week. We have investigative journalism from Solomon Serwanja, the latest Komla Award winner. And it's so exciting to meet him and to learn as much as we can about investigative journalism.
I'm so excited to be here. It is a great experience so far. I checked in a little bit early at around 3, and of course I can't wait to get started.
This is my first day of the fellowship program, and well, for me the experience is good so far. We are just enjoying the spacious rooms. The environment is very nice.
Hi everyone, my name is Mahoro Scovia. I come from DJ University, and I must say my day one is already exciting. I've gotten to meet various people that I met at the Expo, despite the fact that I am the only one from DJ University, but I'm excited. I've already met quite a number of very interesting people who have great insights that we actually shared.
Welcome to the Media Challenge Fellowship 2020.